excessive heat warning in place for Clark County and southern Nutley County. That goes through Friday evening. Keep listening for more updates throughout the day from News 3, your weather authority.
Sunshine 91 in Las Vegas. I'm John Schaefer on the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDON, Las Vegas' only FM news talk station. With a look at the road, here's John Michael.
From the Lemon Road Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by Allstate. Police on scene for a hit-and-run accident investigation reported Lamb Boulevard at Desert Inn Road. Watch for slowing. This one reportedly not blocking, but it is active. Something to watch for. Approach with caution. And road work continues I-15 southbound at St. Rose Parkway with a right lane restriction until 5. Also road work 95 southbound at the Spaghetti at the I-15 southbound transition ramp until 4 this afternoon. And with an Allstate agent, you get a local expert and help finding the best coverage for you. Plus, when you bundle home and auto, you can save. So call your local Allstate agent today. Are you in good hands? I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
Get the rest you deserve with Helix Sleep. Helix makes personalized mattresses to fit your unique body type and sleep preferences and give you the best sleep of your life. Go to helixsleep.com and get up to $200 off mattress orders.
I'm Jim Snyder.
And I'm Marie Mortera. We want to thank you for making News 3 your #1 choice for news.
Every weeknight at 11, you can count on us to have the big story of the day.
Plus breaking news that matters to you.
Jim Snyder and Marie Mortera. News 3 live at 11.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Satisfaction? Simplicity? Performance? When it comes to vaping, we know what matters. At Vuse, we've been pioneering vapor technologies since 2013. All of our liquids are blended in the USA, and our vapor products are only sold through reputable retailers and our website. At Vuse, we charge beyond in what matters to you. Vuse, charge beyond. Underage sale prohibited. Website restricted to age 21 and over tobacco consumers.
Las Vegans are starting to leave their homes and get back to work. A sterilized business is more important than ever. Disinfecting Solution offers professional disinfecting and sterilization services for homes and establishments. For the next 30 days, they're offering Las Vegas businesses peace of mind for 10 cents a square foot. That is to ensure the health and safety of you, your staff, customers. Disinfecting Solution uses only hospital-grade products, killing 99.9% of all germs, including COVID-19. 866-800-7768 or disinfectingsolution.com.
Hi, I'm Dave Mizrahi, owner of Best Mattress. All our stores are now open. And at the Best Mattress Memorial Day sales event, save up to $1,500 on the brands you know and trust. Serta, Beautyrest, Tempur-Pedic, Sealy, Stearns & Foster. And to make things easier on you, we're offering 72 months no-interest financing and free safety-first home or curbside delivery. Plus, get a free adjustable base with your mattress purchase. Shop with confidence with the Best Mattress 120-day satisfaction guarantee. Sleep easy and safe, friends. See store for details.
101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON, the talk of Las Vegas. The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group.
Hello, everyone. This is President Trump, the greatest president in the history of presidents. And the only show I listen to is the top-rated show, Sharp and Shapiro. They are the best.
Right now, the day's biggest news stories. From a Vegas perspective, this is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, good morning, Las Vegas. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro, the left, the right, everywhere in between. That's what we cover on this show, but we're not just a political show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Sports, entertainment, news, you got it. We cover it all here on this show from a Vegas perspective. So glad you can join us live on a Thursday from my kitchen table, ladies and gentlemen, but hopefully we'll be back in the studio soon. As you know, Governor Sisolak implementing Phase 2, which I believe starts tomorrow, by the way. So that's the good news, and hopefully we'll be back in there as well. But we got a good show lined up for you today. Obviously, a lot has transpired in regards to this George Floyd situation. As I shouldn't say I like to call it. Sadly, I have to call it a murder because that's exactly what it was. They were taken to protesting in the street yesterday. It didn't go very well, but we will cover the latest in this case. And coming up in hour number 2, if you recall, the Eric Garner case. Eric Garner in New York saying, I can't breathe, and he was murdered as well. Well, his mother, her name is Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, will be joining us. This has opened up fresh wounds for her because if you recall in that horrific video of George Floyd losing his life, he was saying pretty much the exact same thing. I can't breathe, sir. I can't breathe. She's going to join us in hour number 2. Her thoughts on this horrific case, and a lot to get to with her. So this name you might remember. She's the former Miss Nevada. Her name is Katie Williams, also known as Corona Katie. Well, she was stripped of her crown as Miss Nevada for supporting Donald Trump. I don't agree with that decision. I don't agree with it at all. So we're going to talk about that with her coming up in hour number 3. She's also running for the school board here at CCSD. So she'll be coming up in hour number 3. Good news for you hockey fans out there. The Vegas Golden Knights will be on the ice sooner than you think. Or maybe not, but they'll be on the ice hopefully at some point in this summer for the NHL playoffs. And the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights is Dan Duva. So he'll be joining us in hour number 3 as well. I want to start off with George Floyd and what has taken place here over the last 24 to 48 hours. If you haven't seen the video, it's tragic. It really is. But I think you have to see it. I think you have to watch the video to see why people are so irate and up in arms. I don't care what the color of your skin is. If you have a heart, you should be heartbroken. But what happened to this man, George Floyd? Allegedly using a fake $20 bill in a store. And by the way, we don't know if he did that or not. What we do know is that it appears, based on all the other surveillance video that we've seen, that he wasn't resisting arrest. Or if he was, it was not putting the police in harm's danger. Cop puts his knee over his neck. Guy's fighting for his life, says, "Please, officer, I can't breathe." He dies. He's murdered. Those 4 police officers have now been fired, and now we're just waiting. It's just a matter of time before at least one or hopefully all these officers are charged with something. But we're going to have to wait and see. The mayor in that city is calling for that police officer to be charged with murder. The mayor. What does that tell you? But then, last night, if you watched any of the news last night, you'd know that there were a lot of riots in the streets of Minneapolis. A lot of riots. And the person we have with us on the line right now has been covering this story for KARE 11 right there in Minneapolis. He was actually there watching these protests and riots. His name is Jordy Foy, and I want to get his perspective. It's one thing to watch this on TV. It's another thing if you were actually there. Jordy, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
No problem. So, Jordy, let me start with this. What did you see? What did you hear? My understanding is you were there covering this for your station. What did you actually see when you went there, and describe to us the scene?
Well, when I got there, the first thing that anyone would think, it was shocking. You know, I work overnight, and so I covered this, as it was happening. We got the call in, early Tuesday night that something happened. The police let us know. They made it sound like a critical medical incident, and then the videos started coming in. And so I went to bed, early Wednesday morning, and around 3 there was protests, and that obviously developed overnight. And then I went to the protest later on, and the city was burning down.
Wow.
There was people had fireworks. They were throwing M80s at the police. Police were firing back with these rubber bullets. That's when people started looting around 8:30 last night. I was there, and people were smashing buildings, smashing windows, spray painting doors. It was shocking. And there were some like police, there's some bad police, there's some great police, there's, protesters that were there to, look for justice and, honor George Floyd. And there was people there just to cause chaos and disrupt.
And my understanding is that the family of George Floyd, there have been other situations where the families of some of these victims have said, look, we want to peacefully protest because that's what George Floyd would have wanted, right? And then because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but George Floyd, at least from what I've heard, was not a violent man at all. In fact, he was a fairly peaceful human being. So don't you think that some of these people in Minneapolis that are violently protesting, that are fighting with police, that are throwing stuff at police, that are burning down buildings, that are looting, that are ruining these businesses, don't you think they're doing the opposite of what the Floyd family would want them to do?
Exactly. I think, people forget that there's a man who died. His family is now watching, their loved one become the face of this national story, and they're barely having time to grieve. And there's these protesters out there that don't realize, lighting their community on fire, looting from these businesses, take away from their cause.
Yeah, there's no question. And I'm watching this live on television. Like I said, I mean, you were there, so you saw it for yourself. I heard a story that there was at least one looter that was shot by a local business owner, and then they brought in the National Guard. Can you tell me a little bit about this, and is it true?
So, yes, police got called out to a business and report of a stabbing. Turns out that stabbing was actually a gunshot wound. And yes, there are reports that an owner was defending his store. And, last night, overnights, we were getting all these calls, and we had reporters out on the streets. And business owners were actually standing in front of their businesses to protect them so they wouldn't, be looted or burned down. And after my shift got done around 7:30 this morning, I went to kind of just look at the aftermath of some of these buildings. And while I was there taking pictures, there was a young man standing in front of a broken, door that had a broken window in it. And he was just staring inside the store. And a business owner next to that store came out and said, "Don't even think about it."
Oh, jeez.
Wow. And correct me.
I mean, they're looting in daylight at 7:30 in the morning.
And Jordy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the business that the man that broke into was shot at was a pawn shop.
Yes.
All right, so if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jordy Foy, works with Care 11, covering this story in Minneapolis. Of course, this involved George Floyd, the young man who was murdered by a police officer. I'm just going to call it for what it is. That's what it is. So Jordy, I have to ask you this. What is the relationship before this with local law enforcement and minorities? Because there are some people out there that want to say this had nothing to do with race. I think those people are buffoons. Obviously, in my personal opinion, this had a lot to do with race. Give me the relationship between law enforcement and minorities. I remember when I was covering the story in Ferguson, and don't get me wrong, the Michael Brown case, the circumstances surrounding that are very different than this case. But with that being said, the law enforcement in Ferguson, didn't have the best track record with minorities there. What has it been like in that area as far as you know?
Well, I grew up in this area, but, I've moved away. I've lived in Milwaukee and here, and both had, some tense relationship with the police department. And I think people are still, I don't know if you remember a couple of years back, but the Philando Castile case, I think.
Sure, yep.
Those, that's still fresh in a lot of people's minds. And I think some people might be upset that, there's, like most governments and most city officials, they want to do the right thing. They want to, ease this tension. And I think some people here maybe don't think enough is being done.
Let me ask you this. Do you see these protests lasting a lot longer? I think they're going to last, and you know more than me, but I think they're going to keep lasting until these police officers are brought to justice. Do you expect more protests tonight and throughout the week, or do you see this thing ending sooner than later? What is your feel, since you've been there for a long time? How long do you think these protests are going to go for, and do you expect more tonight?
Well, that's hard to say. I know, with the mayor requesting the National Guard's help, I know that definitely doesn't ease tension around here by any means. I saw on Facebook that the Black Panthers from Milwaukee are now on their way, and protesters are coming from across the country here. There's a protester that we did a story on from St. Louis who, it reminded him of the Ferguson protest. So he, got on a plane and came here to, for the cause. And so I think we're going to see a couple more days of this at least.
Yeah.
Well, and Jordy, peaceful protesting is fine, but rioting is not fine. And there is a fine line between the two. And you're right. It looks to me like there are a lot of people in Minneapolis last night that leveraged this horrible situation for a reason to basically act like an asshole. Like that's what the country saw last night. Do you think that the police department felt hamstrung as far as how they could respond after what took place with George Floyd?
Yeah, I think they were definitely put in their corner with how they could respond. They definitely had to keep themselves safe because a lot of these officers, as I was talking to my coworkers, they're going home to families too.
Sure.
Right.
Well, Jordy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and so they're put in a corner of like, how much can they do? They don't want to make this situation any worse. But then again, they have to protect themselves.
Right. Jordy, I think, it's not easy to do what you've done and what everyone at your station in that area has done, is that as a journalist, as someone who's, whether you're a producer or a reporter, I don't care who you are, when you're going to go in harm's way, and that's a dangerous situation, and you're going to go there to report the news or to cover it for your station, I think it is I don't know if I'd use the term heroic, but certainly it's brave what you did last night being out there, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on our show and kind of setting the scene and explaining everything. If you're out there again tonight or this week, please be safe, and we appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jordy.
That's Jordy Foy from KARE 11 covering the situation in Minneapolis. Okay, let me just share my quick opinions on this whole situation, and then in a few minutes we'll take some phone calls on this. First of all, there are some buffoons out there in the media that like to say that this had nothing to do with race. I don't look at this man, as an African American. I've heard some members of the media that are talking like that, saying that they don't believe race had anything to do with it. If you're one of those people, it's one of three things. Either you're completely ignorant, you're a racist, or you're begging for attention and begging for phone calls or listeners. Okay, it's one of the three or maybe all the three. You're a buffoon, if that's what you're saying. Make no mistake about it, folks, and if you don't believe me, I ask you this very simple question. If this was a white man, do you think the same thing would have happened? The answer is no, unless you're a racist. Let's just be clear and get that out of the way right now. I'm tired of these people. That's number one. Number two, I called out the Trump supporters and some of these protesters that have brought in Confederate flags, their guns looking like G.I. Joe, a noose around the governor's head as a Barbie doll. I've called, not all, but some of those protesters, some of the trashiest people in this country. Now I'm going to go a step further with some of these idiots last night in Minneapolis. I'm not calling them all that. I'm not going to say all these protesters are idiots, but there is never an excuse to throw things at the police, to try to injure police officers and yell vulgarities at them, and to burn down businesses, to burn down banks, to burn down and break into local stores that had the owners of those stores had absolutely nothing to do with what these police officers did. If you are one of those people that was protesting last night, that was committing violent acts, you are one of the dumbest people in society for doing that. Not only are you committing an injustice for the George Floyd family in his name, but you're criminals and you belong in jail. You are some of the dumbest people in society if you think it is going to help the relationship between police officers and minorities if you scream vulgarities in their faces, you burn down buildings. And by the way, the idea that most of these police officers would have done what those four officers did is ridiculous. The majority of police officers are good people. I hope those four cops go to jail for a very, very long time. At least one of them committed murder, maybe all four of them. That's up to a judge and jury to decide. They committed murder. They're murderers. And I believe race was involved here. And the issues between minorities and law enforcement, it has always been a huge problem. And it's what Will Smith said yesterday. And not to quote Will Smith, but I think he said something that is very true. It's not that there is more racial tension and more racial violence in this country now. It's just that some of it is being videotaped. That's the difference. It needs to stop. And all due respect to Colin Kaepernick, I think his heart is in the right place, but taking a knee is not going to solve these problems. We need better relationships between law enforcement and minorities. I don't know how we get there. I have no idea how we get there, but we need to get there because this crap needs to stop. I am tired of having to talk about a lynching in Georgia. I'm tired of having to talk about somebody, a police officer, putting a knee over an African-American who, what was he doing, ladies and gentlemen? Worst case scenario, was it minor resistance? Maybe he wasn't even resisting at all.
He was handcuffed, Brian.
Okay, well, I'm getting to that. But I'm saying worst case scenario, this was a man who maybe might have used a forged bill. You don't even go to jail necessarily for something like that. And maybe some minor, and from what I saw from all the videotapes, minor resistance. When a man is on the ground, an African-American man is on the ground begging for his life, and an officer is nonchalantly putting one of his hands in his pocket and the other and his knee on this guy's neck when clearly this guy isn't faking it. Clearly he's dying right in front of him. And you see 3 other officers doing nothing. You see 3 other officers nonchalant, like nothing is happening. What if it was their father or their mother or their child? Would they still be standing there like that? No, of course not. And these 4 officers, I guarantee you, these 4 officers would be on the streets today working if it wasn't videotaped. You know why? Because they would have lied. That's why. If there wasn't video surveillance and a videotape there, they would have lied. They would have said danger. Make no mistake about it, it happens all the time, and I'm tired of it. Am I saying the majority of cops are bad cops? No. But this crap happens all the time. The difference now is that we have something called cell phones and people videotape. And you know what? To all those people out there, keep doing it. If you see a police officer doing something wrong, videotape it. Video it with your cell phone. I'm tired of it. But just as angry as I am at those 4 bastards who killed this guy, I am just as angry at those protesters because it is going to hurt the relationship.
Ryan, protester is the wrong word. Those rioters.
Not all of them were doing it. So you're right. I'm not
those
angry.
Looters.
I'm not
those people who decided to try to blow up an ATM machine.
I'm not
broke into a bank.
Yes.
Burned down an AutoZone. Destroyed a Wendy's. Completely looted a Target.
Right. I'm not angry at all the protesters. I shouldn't word it that way because not every single person there was committing a crime.
Some were legitimately trying to peacefully protest, but a lot of people took advantage of this awful situation and used it as a reason to just create and cause chaos on their own home turf.
I guarantee you it's going to happen again tonight.
I really hope it doesn't happen tonight because
it will.
They've been relieved of their duties. An investigation is being looked into. And when a police officer is in this situation, the protocol is an investigation has to take place first. And that takes a little bit of time. And President Trump last night said, I'm expediting this. I'm expediting the DOJ investigation or the FBI investigation. So hopefully it gets done quickly. But the rioters, not the protesters, need to understand that. And now there are other protests. There was a protest in L.A. last night. There was a protest in Memphis. There was a Black Lives Matters protest on May 29th at 2 p.m. at the Miracle Mile Mall here in Las Vegas on Friday. I hope to God that is a peaceful protest, just like the protest that I was involved in with reopening Nevada. I hope it was a peaceful protest.
I'm going to pull back a little bit, though.
But there is a major difference between protesting and rioting. And looting.
I agree with what you're saying.
And destroying things.
I agree with what you're saying.
This officer is going to get justice. He's going to get at a minimum.
Not just one.
Well, I mean, the one that murdered this. There was 3. The one that murdered.
There were 4 total.
Yes.
There were 3 officers that were holding him down.
I agree. But the one that murdered George Floyd is going to get 2nd-degree murder at an absolute minimum, possibly 1st-degree murder. His life is going to be over.
Okay, but here's the thing that you need to. I'm going to pull back with a little bit of what you said. Obviously, in my opening statement here, I was attacking and going after the vigilantes and the protesters who were committing crime. I think they're the dumbest people in society. I saw some of a cop lined. And by the way, not every cop would have done that, but the way some of these protesters are treating all these cops, it's absurd. So I saw a line of cops out there, and their job was to just stand there and make sure nothing got out of hand. And I saw some of these rioters that were calling them the N-word. They were saying some of the most despicable things to these police officers. Now, with that being said, when you just talk to some of these people, when you talk to an African-American that's angry about this, and rightfully so, if you say to them, listen, man, we just got to let this thing play out. Sometimes that's not enough. It's not enough for a minority to hear something like that. This is a systemic racism that has gone on for a long time. And for some of these buffoons out there that are in the media that want to say this had nothing to do with race, you're disgusting. So I got to give out the phone number. Let me give out the phone number because we got to take a quick break. And I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on these protests, your thoughts on George Floyd, your thoughts on this entire situation that has simply gotten out of hand, and it's only going to get worse, and now it's happening throughout the country. We had protests in L.A., as J.D. mentioned yesterday, and it's coming to Vegas, so I want to give out the number. If you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396. Again, we're going to open up the phone lines next segment, and I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on this story. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, now's the time to do it. 702-257-5396. We'll take a quick break, and we want to hear from you, your thoughts on this situation, next right here on the Vegas Take.
Every home has a to-do list. That leaky drain, bare spots on the lawn, repainting the trim. To finally get that
That's all we
to-do
need.
list
I like when
done,
he went out and
call
said he
in a
went out there
pro.
at 7:30.
Over the past 20 years,
They were still
Home
trying to
Advisor
loop.
has
That's
connected
all I
over
wanted. I
100
just wanted to
million
hear someone
homeowners
who's
with
there.
trusted
That's
local
all he
pros.
walked around.
And
Yeah.
during these times, we're making
we
it
didn't use
easier
the
than ever
audio.
for great pros to join the Home Advisor network. For a limited time, home service businesses can
Oh,
get
yeah, I forgot to do
$200
that.
in free advertising. Visit
I don't know if we need to do
homeadvisor.com/offer
that.
for
Depends on how many
details.
calls you
That's
got.
homeadvisor.com/offer.
There if you want.
This is Harry Jacobs from Credit Restoration of Nevada, inviting you to join me for the Credit Show, Saturday mornings between 9 and 10, here on the new 101.5 FM and 720 AM.
Parents, you always say you want what's best for your children. If that's the case, then you should be bringing your kid to Infinity, the Math Institute, where every student earns an A or B in math. Our results are proven and they are amazing. The best tutoring service for the best price, whether online or in person, small group or one-on-one. You cannot get better results. Great grades will come when your child truly understands the math. From elementary math to calculus, we have the best tutors, the best materials, and the best results. Now offering free parent seminars on how to better help your child, what is Common Core, and more. Find out why parents are bragging and students are enjoying school again by calling 702-768-1777. That's 702-768-1777 or visit themathinstitute.com today. Tell them the Vegas Take sent you, because at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Bria's fashion boutique is the worst. First, they asked me if I needed help finding anything. Just because I'm gorgeous doesn't mean I need help.
No matter how hard you work for your small business, online reviewing about it.
Then they tell me they're having a sale. Oh, so you're assuming I'm poor. Cool.
And while Progressive can save you from these trolls, we can help you save money on commercial auto.
They tried to give me the friends and family discount. I'm not your friend, so...
Get a quote online today at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliated third-party insurers.
Are you looking for smoke-free housing? Visit GetHealthyClarkCounty.org for over 50,000 smoke-free units available.
Join Coach Harvey Hyde and Chuck Hayes Saturday evenings from 9 to 10 p.m. for Trojan Football Report, presented by South Point Hotel and Casino, here on 101.5 FM and 720 AM KDWN, where Las Vegas comes to talk.
Special
So
report coronavirus update.
So I'm working as fast as I can. I'm just saying, I mean, it might not be, I'm not going to be able to get to it.
By wearing a face mask to reduce transmission.
Horrible impact in the communities of color in
All right, so I got to rev up the
so
listeners
many of the
right now.
deaths, at least
I need
1/3,
5 minutes again.
are seniors in
Huh?
nursing homes and the rest.
No, they're not, because we're not getting calls.
And yet, we can't seem to get
pretty normal for 9
the executive
So
branch,
I'm
the
gonna
president
take-
of
That's
the
why I
United
think we go back to it
States,
after
to make
one
the
time, so we
decision,
get more calls at that
to
Yes.
show the
So,
example of what we can do to stop this.
I'm just going to.
A report in the journal Science
rev up
today
the calls a
raises
little bit.
concern that 6 feet is not enough distance to prevent
But,
the transmission of
there's
the
still a lot
virus
that I
while
haven't
people
said
are
that I will
speaking.
say.
More than 40 million Americans have lost
I'm not
work
worried
because
about
of the
that. I got plenty to
pandemic.
say.
Last week's total, 2.1 million more.
I'll do that.
On Wall
If you're
Street,
just
the Dow
joining
up
us,
more than
here's
100
what went
points,
down.
S&P
What
up
went
18.
down overnight in Minneapolis.
Yes.
I'm Mike
Here's a
Morris.
live report from this morning.
It's time to check the
Kinda
roads.
recaps everything
Traffic studio.
This report sponsored by Allstate. Watch for slowing for a crash
Mayor
reported
just said
on
he thinks
Desert
this
Inn
guy should
Road
be
near
charged.
Boulder
That's
Highway,
basically what
or
it
avoid
says.
delays, take an alternate like
Yes,
Flamingo or Nellis Boulevard instead. Also a crash on Rancho just north of Craig.
up,
There
Chris.
you could
You
use
see,
Jones
I
or
thought
Rainbow to
this
get around
was
that
over.
one.
I thought
No
this was
delays
over.
to report on I-15 north and
Cliff's
south
guys
between the
from
Spaghetti Bowl and
Minneapolis.
Tropicana, but road work
Thanks,
continues
Sean.
on
Thanks, Chris. Did
I-15
you pull it
southbound
for
at
me?
St. Rose
Is it
Parkway
all
with
chopped
the
up and
exit
ready
lane
to go?
closed till 5
Then
o'clock
don't tell
this
me about it.
afternoon. With an Allstate
Don't tell me
agent, you
something
get a
that I
local
don't
expert
have.
and help
And
finding the
can't
best
pull out
coverage
of
for
my
you.
ass.
Plus, when you bundle home and
Maybe
auto,
Sean
you
can
can
pull it.
save. So call your local Allstate agent today. Are you in good hands? I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic
I
Center.
thought he was done texting us during the show.
Everything on social media these days, you can believe it's possible to start a new life as an
just saying, that
IT
would've been
pro in
helpful
as
last
little
night.
as 4 months from the comfort of your own home, even if you have zero computer experience. Instead of waiting
Shut up
to
and
see
drill.
what happens when life gets back to normal, take control of your future now. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. Live online classes meet just twice a week. It's not rocket science, it's mycomputercareer.edu.
There are everyday
So all we got
actions
is
to help prevent the spread of
Sorry.
respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid
Well, we've
close
been off for a
contact
week.
with people who are sick.
9 o'clock. It's
Avoid
not weird. 9
touching your
o'clock is
eyes,
always
nose,
a
and
roll
mouth.
call
Yep.
volume.
Stay home when you are sick. Cover
okay.
your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched
Not worried about
objects
10,
with
15,
household
10,
cleaning
20 is when
spray.
the call starts.
For more
Yeah, I think that
information, visit
I'm not worried. Like, there's plenty to talk about here.
cdc.gov/COVID-19.
It's not like we got nothing to
brought
talk
to you
about.
by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Sean Hannity,
Again, like I
weekdays
said,
noon
day
to
one,
3
calls
p.m.
and ratings.
Now back to the Vegas take
zero
on
correlation.
101.5 FM,
ratings.
720 AM. KDON.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us on a Thursday. If you're just joining us, we're speaking about the George Floyd murder. Some idiots across the country in the media are saying this didn't necessarily have anything to do with race. If you're one of those people, you're either just a dumbass or you're a racist. It's one or the other. Or you're just trying to get clicks. It's one or the other. Let's just call it for what it is. If you think that if George Floyd was white, he would have been treated the same way, you're a moron, and you're sheltered. There's no question.
Well, especially when you factor in, this is the same police department that killed Philando Castillo back in 2016. This department has been known to treat minorities, African Americans, in particular, very, very poorly for a long time. In fact, there's estimates that more African American deaths occur at about a 1,000% rate compared to other, at the hands of police officers compared to other cities across the country. So the Minnesota police, the Minneapolis Police Department itself, is probably engaging in systemic racism, and obviously this was a combination of racism as well as an abuse of power by the police officer.
There's two points as far as this thing goes. Obviously, it's the horrible atrocity and the murder of George Floyd, probably because of the color of his skin. So there's that, and then there's the police officers who were immediately fired, which, by the way, never happens. I've been in the news business for 20 years. You almost never see, 99% of the time, you never see police officers getting fired within 24 hours of an incident. Usually they're put, at worst case scenario, on paid administrative leave. That tells you something right there. I'm sure the police chief and many others looked at all the videos and knew that these guys did something very, very, very bad. So that's number one. Then there's the other side of this. Yes, you want justice for George Floyd, but for these dumbasses that are out there that are throwing stuff at police officers, that are burning down buildings, that are looting, what the hell is wrong with you? How dumb are you as a human being? First of all, you're selfish. You're making it about you, number one. And number two, you think that's the best way to go about trying to push this narrative forward of trying to get police officers to treat you better? You think this is the best way to go? Are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. The number to call if you want to be a part of this conversation, we're taking some calls now, 702-257-5396. Again, that number if you want to be a part of the conversation is 257-5396. We need to call out police officers, those who commit horrible crimes, murders, and we also need to call out these idiot protesters that think they're doing something good by swearing at cops, burning down buildings, ruining local businesses like what happened in Ferguson. It's a joke. 702-257-5396. Let's go to James. James, you're first up in the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, James?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, James.
I'd like to make, first point I'd like to make is almost no one had masks on and weren't social distancing during that riot. And secondly, now, don't take this as being racist, but I didn't see a single white person.
Not true. Not true. Not true.
There were plenty of Caucasians there that were engaging in rioting.
Some police have the attitudes, apprehensions that they do.
Okay, so
I'm not condoning it or
okay, well, James, hold on a second. Let me just pull back on what you just said. I watched the video last night for hours. I watched a live feed of it, and with all due respect, you're wrong. I saw people that were white with their shirts off that were acting like buffoons, just like some of the minorities were. Not all of them, but some of them. So there were white people there, just like there were white people in Ferguson. Now, listen, honestly, the majority of the people that were protesting were African Americans, and I don't have a problem with that.
And that could be expected.
I don't care. I don't care what the color. I don't care what the color of their skin is. You know what I care about? That they're not committing violent acts. That's what I care about.
I agree. The one point I would like to make is, it shouldn't matter if that man on the ground, that was the human being that was murdered. Shouldn't matter if he was black or white. Why don't we have the same reaction when this happens to whomever it happens?
All right, so let me ask you a question. When was the last time you saw 4 officers kill a white man who was on the ground for maybe writing a bad check or using a wrong bill? When was the last time you heard of a story like that?
I can't honestly say that.
Exactly. And, sir, with all due respect, that's my point. This happens to minorities A lot more than it would ever happen to somebody that looks like you or me. I appreciate the phone call, but I think you understand. I think
percentage-wise, but more white people are actually killed by the police.
that is an absurd argument, and here's why that is an absurd argument. Let me explain.
The numbers do support that, but based on the population disparity, it's obviously not proportional.
Exactly. Exactly. You stole the words out of my mouth. That is exactly what I was going to say. That is an absurd argument, and you cannot look me in the eye and tell me that you think police officers treat minorities the same as people that look like me. I'm sorry, but let's call it for what it is. This is about race, and it is not true. And for the idiots out there that want to say, oh, the liberals, the Democrats, they want to play the race game, just shut up because you're wrong.
Like, for example, right now in 2020, there have been 42 Caucasians that have been killed by a policeman with a gun, and there have been 31 African Americans.
Right, but based on the population, what that gentleman just said is completely ridiculous. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Marge. Marge, you're next up in the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Marge?
Hi, good morning. My sympathies go out to his family. I can just imagine how they're feeling if they just happen to see some of the videos that are going out.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're not really, it's terrible because we have the one situation that happened just recently in Georgia. And now this, hopefully it's getting more attention, now, and it's coming out from underneath the covers.
Yeah.
I saw an interview last night on Chris Cuomo's show with a witness, as well as the governor. Not the governor, but the mayor of the town. And the witness, you could just feel the pain. He was a black person, and he just couldn't imagine what he was seeing. But he said he witnessed it. He kind of gave a lot of the details. It's horrible. The mayor said that he doesn't understand why the police officer hasn't been arrested yet.
That's a good question.
He's really pushing, on the whole.
Marge, if it was you or me that committed that crime, because that's what that officer did, it was a murder, we would be in jail right now. I'm so sick and tired of police officers getting, the preferential treatment. It's been happening for decades and decades, and it needs to stop now. The majority of police officers are good people, but when you have a few bad apples out there, I want to hear officers... I have spoken to a few friends of mine that have been in law enforcement or in law enforcement the last 24 hours. They are pissed off. They are pissed off because this puts every officer's life at risk right now when you've got these dumbasses that commit these horrible atrocities, and now, rightfully so, a lot of people are angry at law enforcement and police, and it puts everybody in harm's way.
And you know what? The other thing that I saw, interestingly, was there's a handoff that occurs between Chris and Don Lemon.
Yeah.
And
I saw that.
Went on, oh gosh,
he went on a diatribe. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Well, you know what? Don Lemon, he made some good points, didn't he? He really did.
Yes. Well, and the one thing that really hit me was he said, if you're white, you get a black friend. If you're black, get a white friend if you don't have it. Now, I do have black friends.
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
That's good.
It really opens your eyes, and I can say to anybody out there that if you're of one race or another and you don't have a friend of the other, get one, because I think that'll also help all the relationships. Couldn't agree more, Marge. And if you are somebody who is white out there, and Marge, by the way, it's always good to hear from you. I appreciate the phone call. If you are white and you have friends that are minorities, African Americans, it's time to listen to them. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with everything they say, but it's time to listen. Okay. I'm not going to listen to someone who's committing violent acts. I'm not going to listen to somebody that is burning down buildings, that is acting like a vigilante, that is going in stores and stealing TVs. That's the kind of person I'm not going to listen to. But I will listen to anybody else talk about these issues. I am not black. I don't know what it's like to be black. I don't know what it's like to live in society as an African American. But what I do know is what I saw in that video was wrong, and it was murder, and we need to call it out. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
What's up, guys? It's been a while. I used to call in a lot, about a year.
Well, glad we have you back, Kevin. What's on your mind, man?
I heard an interview once. I always wondered, again, as a white guy, like in regards to protesting, I heard an interview with Ice-T, the famous rapper. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, I do.
And he was trying to explain to white people why people protest, and he gave a great analogy that I could understand. He said, "You remember when you're like 8 years old and your parents punished you and sent you to your room and you had a temper tantrum and you just lost it and you took all your toys and you threw them against the wall and you broke everything because you were just so fed up and you lost it." He's all, "That's why protests happen, because people are just fed up and they lose it."
Oh, listen, Kevin, listen, you make a good point. I understand why people are protesting. I have no problem with that. But I think it's you're not shedding George Floyd in the right light that you should, and you're not representing him and his family when you're burning down buildings and committing crimes. That's all. I have no problem with these protesters. Listen, I have a lot of anger, and the majority of my anger is to these 4 dope police officers who committed murder, as far as I'm concerned. But Kevin, what we need to also call out are those that do not peacefully protest. Just as I called out Donald Trump, protests, these campaign rallies. I didn't say all the protesters were committing crimes, but I said some of them certainly were dopes, and some of them, those particularly that were kind of, I guess you could say, advocating for violence, like those who brought Confederate flags, those who had a noose around a Barbie doll trying to show the governor that we want to kill the governor. So while I called those people out,
you also
called
those out that were not practicing social distancing.
Yeah, they're dopes as well. Absolutely.
And as one caller, basically stated a couple calls ago, almost nobody was practicing social distancing last night.
Well, I'm comparing
in LA, in Minneapolis, or in Memphis. I did see some masks.
I'm comparing those dopes to these dopes last night, Kevin, if that makes sense. We have to call out the idiots who are committing crimes, not practicing social distancing, and that's where my anger lies, Kevin.
The last thing, and I think you might have hit something there, Brian, is, people are kind of in snap mode right now. I mean, this is the greatest time in the modern history.
Yep.
This stuff could keep going. I mean, hey, people are out of work. People are not stable right now. A lot of people, whatever. You could see a lot more worse stuff happen in major cities.
You're right. No, you're right. Kevin, you've always been one of my favorite callers, my friend, and we're glad you chimed in today. Thank you so much, okay? Appreciate it.
You know what happened last night was the liquor store in Minnehaha was one of the first places that was looted, and so people were just drinking liquor and getting more intoxicated and getting more angry. When that happens, the protests are going to get more wild, basically. And
they got more violent as the night went on.
Yeah, and because I think that a lot of them were getting more intoxicated as the night went on.
Which doesn't make it right, obviously.
No, of course it doesn't. But I really hope that this stops. I hope that peaceful protests become if you're going to protest, please do it peacefully, because the economy, not just in Las Vegas, but across the country, is very, very fragile right now. And a lot of these local businesses that are being broken into, they're going to have to wait a long time to get insurance money. It's going to be a very, very an uphill battle trying to repair all these damages. And then like, for example, at Target, is Target a $6 billion a year company? Yes. But there's about 150 employees there that worked at that Target who now have no job, or who now have nowhere to work. You have to factor that in.
We all agree.
There's a lot of aftermath results that come when you just burn down and destroy a business.
We all agree that that should never happen, and it's wrong, and those people should be called out for it. But listen, I covered I was doing a show on another station when the Ferguson stuff went down, and I'm telling you right now, this is going to happen for weeks. These protests are going to continue to happen, and I don't think anything will die down until these officers are brought to justice. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Alex. Alex, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
What's up, Alex?
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, Brian, I agree with you 100%. You couldn't have said it better. I think what we saw on that video was horrific, absolutely horrific. But I do have a question that you guys, because I don't even watch the news anymore for a very long time.
Yep.
I get a lot of the interesting subjects from you guys, so it's very fascinating in your show. I need to know if you guys seen any video after the poor victim was taken out of the police car, walked over to the wall.
I saw that.
At that point, I have not seen a video from the wall to where the poor guy was on the ground.
Sure. So let me. Yeah. So here's what I will tell you. There are police cameras, that have been released to certain people. I haven't seen them yet, but here's what I've heard from the Attorney General, from what we've heard, and what we've heard is that if there was any resistance from this guy, it was very minor, meaning that the officers' lives were not in jeopardy. This man was in pain because of the handcuffs. They bring him up. They stand him up. He was in very serious pain, at least it looked like from his face, by the way they put the handcuffs on him. and it was minor resistance. He wasn't coming at them with a gun or a knife. These police officers were not in bodily harm, in jeopardy. That is very, very important. Now, the good news is, sir, is that at least one of those officers had a body camera that was on. And in my personal opinion, that is why they were fired so quickly. I believe the police chief and those that made the decision to fire them saw that video and saw there was absolutely no justification for the way those officers treated this man and killed him.
Those other officers that were standing around, really, their obligation was really to tell that guy to get off that.
Exactly.
And that's what should have really happened.
And they could hear him.
I'd like to say something as far as we all have to think that when we're going to be born, nobody chooses whether we are black or white, tall or short, a lot of hair on their head, or bald. We have to understand that the black people, they've gone through some really horrible things, and we've got to have some empathy and sympathy for what they've gone through. And protesting with violence isn't going to help. And whenever we get stopped by a police officer, just say yes, sir, no, sir, and most of the time it'll be a lot better.
No question.
Not all cops are bad.
Yep.
So please.
Well said. Very well said. Yep.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very well said, Alex. Appreciate the phone call. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Craig. Craig, go ahead. You're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
The show.
Thank you.
But, these officers protecting themselves. I feel like
Craig, I think your phone is going in and out. Why don't we do this? Why don't we put Craig on hold? Let's see if he could get his phone situated, and then Craig, I do want to hear from you. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Paul in the meantime. Paul, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Paul?
Hey, yo, what up, JD? What up, Mr. Shapiro? Just wanted to say I'm a huge fan. I love you guys' show. I love that y'all are not afraid to handle any topic. And Mr. Shapiro, I love how you stay true to yourself. You don't care if it's black, white, Mexican, Asian. All you care about is their morals, and then.
Paul, I appreciate you saying that. That's how my parents raised me, my friend. I don't look at somebody and look at skin color, but I also look at a situation and see if something happened because of skin color. Those are two different things, Paul, as you know. And there's no question in my mind that George Floyd would be alive today if he was white.
Yes, I agree, but I do want to say something about those looters. I'm a black man. I want to say something about those looters and those rioters.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That takes away from the cause, and those black people who are doing that, they're not even fans of black people. Those are the type of black people that'll kill me quicker than they'll kill anybody.
Yeah.
They're trying to get some free stuff, like free get money or whatever.
Yeah.
So those aren't really people that's down for the cause. They're just trying to get some free stuff here in America.
Yeah, can I ask you a question as an African-American man? Have you been mistreated by the police, and can you give me an example of maybe something that happened to you that you could share with us? So maybe you could give other people, some of the idiots out there that are in the media that say that this has nothing to do with race. You sound like a smart guy. Can you give me an example of maybe how the police have mistreated you at one point or another in your life?
That's a great question. Me personally, I've had several encounters with the police, but I'm a military brat, so my dad raised me with respect. So I show police officers nothing but respect. I never really had a bad encounter, like personally. Sometimes they make me mad, but other than that, I never had nothing where it's like racially profiled or anything like that. It's just, I think if you, for the most part, if you show cops respect and let them do their job, they're not going to hand you up. But like you said, there are some bad apples out there.
Sure.
But for the most part, if you respect them, they'll respect you.
No question. Well, listen, I'm glad to hear from you, and I'm glad that you haven't been mistreated by police. I'm happy to hear that, and thank you so much for the phone call and those kind words. We appreciate that. By the way, I want to remind people, coming up at the top of the hour, do we remember the Eric Garner case that took place, I believe, in 2014? I can't breathe. It happened in New York. Worst case scenario, he was selling cigarettes to people, and then they put him in a chokehold, and he dies. Well, Eric Garner's mother is going to be joining us in 10 minutes. This has opened up fresh wounds for her because, as you know, George Floyd, the exact same things were said. I can't breathe, sir. Please, I can't breathe. So this has brought back some horrible memories of her losing her son only 6 years ago. Gwen Carr, the father of Eric Garner, will be joining us in about... I'm sorry, the mother. I apologize. The mother will be joining us in 10 minutes. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Brady. Brady, you're next up in the Vegas Take.
What's up, Brady?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Hey, Brian, I mean, I know you're a white man and you love to defend the black people, but all these cases of all these people getting killed and shot.
Hold on a second. All right, hold on a second. All right, stay on the line. All right, stay on the line, Brady. I'm not going to hang up on you. I love to defend black people, you just said. Let me correct. Okay, I know that's the way you think because you're a buffoon. No, I know. Okay, so now you want to use a racist term. Okay, pot him down now because he just said something racist. It took him 20 seconds to do it. It's not that I love to defend black people, you buffoon, you dummy, you racist. It's not that I like to defend black people. You know what I like to defend? What's right and wrong, you dumbass. That's what I like to defend. And then you're going to call these people thugs? Now listen, you know what? No. Every time you call into the show, you show your stupidity.
Brady, you are referring to all African Americans as thugs. Do you know how racist that is? There are
hold on a second.
There are thugs.
Yeah.
There are
JD
Hispanic thugs.
Hold on a second. Keep Brady on the line. Keep Brady on the line.
There are thugs of all races.
Brady,
you are literally every single African American person a thug.
Brady, did you just say?
How do you not realize how racist that is?
Did you just say there was a gene, Brady? Is that what you just said? Please explain that.
I think some people, even the black people, have a robbing gene that's been inbred over history for the last 300 years, and they want to take everything back from the white.
Well, Brady, here's what I think the gene that you have, Brady. Let me just explain. I think you have the gene of living in your mobile home and having sex with your cousin with your Confederate flag. Yeah, right on. Get the hell off the show, you racist pig. Get off the show. You are a disgrace to white people in the world. That's what you are. You are scum of the earth, racist. Have fun at your Klan rally tonight. And by the way, you owe me $100 from a bet you made 6 months ago that you'll never pay me.
And as far as the underlying crime you're talking about, George Floyd have a counterfeit $20 bill?
Who cares?
Apparently. But does that mean that he had to die?
Here's what
Absolutely
scares me.
Not. That was the worst call you've ever had into our show.
There might be some police officers out there that think like Brady. That's the problem that we have in society, Brady, who will call into probably other shows, and some people might defend some of the things he says, but guess what? We're not going to do that here. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Lewis. Lewis, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Lewis?
Hey, guys. I mean, yeah, everybody, I think, can agree what happened was terrible. What I disagree with is that everyone is losing all sense of reality, and the people demanding for justice immediately. This isn't the Wild West where they're going to hang the officers in the middle of the street. I get it. Yes. Is it murder? That's going to be hard to prove. But everyone's forgetting there's a police agency involved.
What do you mean murder is going to be?
Exactly. No, there's always due process that has to take place, and you're totally right in that regard. And those particular looters are not factoring that into the equation.
Okay, but what do you mean murder is going to be hard?
Everybody that says these guys got to get arrested.
Hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. What do you mean murder? Let's just talk about that one cop. You saw the video. His knee is on his neck. He's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. He's got one of his hands in his pocket nonchalantly. The man is dying, and you're telling me that murder is going to...
I agree with you, but how do you prove it was his intent to kill the guy?
Well, because...
I'm only using the defense.
You don't have to have... Hold on a second. You don't necessarily have to have intent in order to put somebody in jail for a long time. That's number one. I know people who have killed people on the road because they were intoxicated, but they've been charged with involuntary manslaughter. I know some people that have gotten over a decade in jail. So with all due respect...
It's going to be hard to prove. And I'm not going to sit here and get into the minutia like you like to do.
I'm not getting into a minutia. I'm just saying you're wrong and I'm right. That's not a minutia. I'm right, you're wrong. Have a nice day, and we're going to move on. Have a nice day. No, it's no minutia. You're wrong and I'm right. It's not a minutia.
Once that video came out and we could clearly hear George Floyd's last breath and pleading, obviously the police officer could hear the exact same thing.
Yeah,
and that alone is going to get him convicted.
To say it's hard to prove, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
And he's also held to a higher standard as a police officer.
All right, coming up next, we remember the Eric Garner case. I can't breathe. This happened back in 2014. This is opening fresh wounds, sadly, for the Garner family, including his mother. His mother, Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, will be joining us next. right here on the Vegas Take 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
Some boats can take you anywhere you want to go. Other boats help you get huge hang time. But only a Yamaha boat lets you do it all at once. From the entry-level 19-foot series to the power-packed Wake series to the luxurious 275 series. Yamaha makes boats that unlock all the possibilities on the water. Don't miss the May promo. Boating Lake Mead on Boulder Highway just south of Desert Inn Road. BoatingLakeMead.com.
Listen to the Texas Corners Bible Church every Saturday night at 11 p.m. and Sunday night at 10 p.m. on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
Oh, long time no see. It's me, the Rock T-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is Harry Jacobs from Credit Restoration Nevada, inviting you to join me for the Credit Show Saturday mornings between 9 and 10 here on the new 101.5 FM at 720 AM, KDAWN.
Millions retire online so they can do what they want offline. Social Security, securing today
every single
and
time you try to
tomorrow.
make fun of my sex
See
life,
what
I
you
remind
can
you.
do online.
This is
Are we off? Are we off?
No, they're on.
Well, you might want to turn that off.
Hey, it's Lee Goldberg of the GCI guys at Realty One Group. Do you know anyone that's looking to buy a home, sell a home, rent, move from California? If so, give them my number, 702-902-3029. All listeners of the Vegas Take get $1,000 in your hand back at closing. Hometown heroes, veteran, military, police, teacher, nurse, I'm giving you $2,000 back. That also goes for hospitality and casino employees. Free use of a moving truck for a day, 6 free months of home security. Call me, 702-902-3029, the GCI guys.
Your home for Sean Hannity. KDWN Las Vegas. KKLZ HD2 Las Vegas. A Beasley Media Group station. .101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN, the talk of Las Vegas. 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN, the talk of Las Vegas.
Is marking the day after hitting 100,000 dead from coronavirus, but correspondent Bryn Gingras says regional numbers are showing the pandemic is far from over.
Primarily seeing the cases going up in the southeast part of the country, in states like Alabama, where there's been a surge, Tennessee, Virginia. If you remember, the governor earlier this week was begging its residents to start wearing masks, practice social distancing.
Montgomery, Alabama, Mayor Stephen Reed.
We're seeing the spikes not only in Montgomery, but also throughout Alabama. And that is problematic for our business owners. It's problematic for our schools. It's problematic for our hospitals, our first responders, and our entire community.
Reed says the public is suffering from COVID fatigue. The House is moving to pass bipartisan legislation to allow more flexibility with the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm Mike Moss. The FBI and the U.S. prosecutor in Minneapolis are conducting a criminal investigation into the death of George Floyd, a black man who died while being arrested by police. Police Chief Todd Axtell has seen videos of Floyd begging an officer to take his knee off of his neck because he couldn't breathe.
Every police officer that I know that I interacted with yesterday in the city of St. Paul, there was not one who felt that what they observed on that video in Minneapolis was in any way, shape, or form acceptable police behavior. It's disgusting. It's dehumanizing. And it's something that absolutely has to stop.
April had a record collapse in Americans signing contracts to buy homes. The National Association of Realtors reports pending home sales fell 22%. On Wall Street, the Dow up 179, the S&P up 28 points. I'm Mike Moss.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Leonard Road Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by Lowe's. An accident reported on Rancho Drive, north of Craig. Watch for slowing in the area or take an alternate like Jones or Rainbow instead. Also, road work continues on I-15 southbound at St. Rose Parkway with a right lane restriction and the exit ramp closed until 5 o'clock this afternoon. Take an alternate route. Food Distribution Day at Palace Station in the parking lot. Expect heavier traffic on Sahara between Decatur and I-15 while supplies last. Pros, shop for brands you trust on Lowe'sForPros.com and get free standard shipping on qualifying orders of $45 or more. Restrictions apply. Contiguous U.S. only. I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
Get the rest you deserve with Helix Sleep. Helix makes personalized mattresses to fit your unique body type and sleep preferences and give you the best sleep of your life. Go to HelixSleep.com and get up to $200 off mattress orders.
No money down to file a bankruptcy? At Fair Fee Legal Services, you can file a bankruptcy for no money down. Keep your car, your house, and everything you own. Stop paying those high-interest credit cards and payday loans. Fair Fee Legal Services will file your bankruptcy for $799 or no money down. Get your life back for no money down.
Debt-free, carefree, finally free with Fair Fee. FairFeeLegalServices.com. 702-703-3333.
Las Vegans are starting to leave their homes and get back to work. A sterilized business is more important than ever. Disinfecting Solution offers professional disinfecting and sterilization services for homes and establishments. For the next 30 days, they're offering Las Vegas businesses peace of mind for 10 cents a square foot. That is to ensure the health and safety of you, your staff, customers. Disinfecting Solution uses only hospital-grade products, killing 99.9% of all germs, including COVID-19. 866-800-7768 or disinfectingsolution.com.
Good sleep is essential for good health, so let's revitalize your home right now with a fresh new mattress. Hi, I'm Dave Mizrahi, owner of Best Mattress. We're open and we're following all the COVID-19 government preventive standards, so you can feel confident and safe while shopping at Best Mattress. We have free safety first home or curbside delivery of the brands you know and trust. Serta, Beautyrest, Tempur-Pedic, Sealy, and Stearns & Foster. Easy financing and the Best Mattress 120-day sleep easy guarantee.
The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group.
Hello, everyone. This is President Trump, the greatest president in the history of presidents. And the only show I listen to is the top-rated show, Sharp and Shapiro. They are the best.
Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. We've been talking about the horrific case, the loss of life of George Floyd, I believe because of the color of his skin. It was murder, ladies and gentlemen, and have a listen to this because it certainly reminds me of a case that took place back in 2014. This is George Floyd, in his own words the other day, moments before he lost his life, begging for his life. Have a listen to this.
Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, somebody.
There you go. And there you go. That is difficult to listen to. It's difficult to watch, but it certainly, sadly, reminds me of a horrible case back in 2014. That would be the case of Eric Garner, who lost his life over basically nothing. Nothing. And sadly, I wish it was under better circumstances, but the lady who is joining us on the line right now, who is nice enough to speak with us, is the mother of the late Eric Garner. It is Gwen Carr. Gwen, thank you so much for joining us. I wish it was under better circumstances. How are you?
Yes, I'm okay. I wish it was under better circumstances too.
Yes, and I can't imagine, Gwen, and I would that this has to open up fresh wounds for you after what took place with your son back in 2014. When you hear George Floyd, like your son was, begging for his life, saying, "I can't breathe," what is going through your mind?
Yes, it's just deja vu all over again. Just like my son was begging for his life 6 years ago, this young man was begging for his life the other day. And the disconcerted police officers, they decided to take his life anyway. It's just, we don't only have a COVID pandemic. We have a pandemic with the police officers, the disconcerted police officers that are on the force. And it's just a tragic that they come into our neighborhoods and they brutalize, terrorize, and murder our sons, and it's for no good reason. This young man was not committing a crime. He did not have a weapon, but he lost his life senselessly.
I agree with you, sadly, and this is also a pandemic, and I'm sick and tired of having to talk about it and innocent African Americans losing their lives. Let me ask you this. It's my understanding that there were no officers that were held accountable in the death of your son, Eric Garner. Are you concerned or are you afraid that we could possibly have the same result in this George Floyd situation?
Well, what happened was it took 5 years for the blatant officer in my case. And I'm still fighting for the other officers to be fired because they were all acting in concert that day. But far as George Floyd, at least they fired the officers on the spot.
Right.
But now we got to see what the federal government is going to do. And I just hope that they have a better outcome than I did with the federal government. They drug us along for 5 years. 5 years they drug us along and then said that there was going to be no charges. They wasn't going forward with pressing charges.
Mm-hmm.
And to add insult to injury, the whole world knew about it before the family did.
Right. That's inexcusable.
I just hope they don't put them through this.
And I'm so sorry, not just the loss of your son, which no mother should ever have to deal with, but the fact that you had to wait years for anything to happen is completely inexcusable. I am totally on your side. I want to ask you this. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with the mother of the late Eric Garner. Very similar sad circumstances with George Floyd. They were both saying they couldn't breathe. They were fighting for their lives. I want to ask you this. Let's just say hypothetically, what do you think would have happened if there was one officer there speaking to your son back in 2014, and if that one officer said, Mr. Garner, we need you to put your hands behind your back, if he says no, and I don't know if he would have said no, I'm just saying hypothetically, if he said no, what do you think the officer should do at that point? Because I don't have the answer to that.
Well, first of all, that day, my son wasn't committing any crime.
Right.
They have a misconception that he was selling cigarettes that day, which actually he had just broken up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of media that, gets things wrong. So that's why you have to get it from the source.
Right.
But even if they should not have even touched him because he wasn't doing anything wrong.
Right.
But he was just trying to explain that to them.
Right.
Officer, I wasn't doing anything. And they just refused to listen to him. And it was just like they wanted to take him down. There was no reason for them to take him down to the ground. He wasn't no threat. He had his hands up in the air. So why would they do that? Just like with George Foreman. They took him out the car. He wasn't resisting arrest.
Right.
And he ended up being murdered.
Yeah. No, and listen, I that's why we're talking to you, because we want to get the facts, and there's no question about that, and I believe you on that. What do you think should happen to not just the officers in your case with your son, where he lost his life, but in this case with George Floyd? I mean, what do you think would be? I don't like the word justice, Mrs. Carr, and the reason why I don't is you're never going to get your son back, and even if those police officers are punished, I don't think it's justice. That's just my personal opinion. But with that being said, what should happen to these officers in your case with Eric Garner, your son, and in this George Floyd situation? What do you think would be a sufficient punishment?
Well, sir, like you said, there is no justice for George Floyd or Eric Garner because they are gone.
Right.
But justice in general, I think for George Floyd, those officers should be prosecuted and convicted of murder.
Mm-hmm.
And like in my son's case also, it should have been the same thing. It should have been a slam dunk because it was caught on video. Everyone, the whole world, seen my son being murdered on video.
Right.
And it took 5 years for them to even fire one officer. And he's trying to sue for his job back.
And I believe that process will be expedited in the case of George Floyd. Last night there were riots in Minneapolis. There was also protests. Protests turned into riots. Do you think that where buildings were vandalized, things were burnt down, specific places were looted? Do you think that rioting over a situation like this helps or hurts the actual cause, and does it and does it honor the victims?
I don't condone that at all, because I don't think anybody should go tearing up other people's property. But what happens is anger gets bottled up. Anger, frustration, the horrificness of the murders, it gets bottled up into individuals because it happens over and over again. And sometimes some individuals, they don't know how to channel that anger. So you don't know when it's going to combust. And sometimes it just, just takes one straw to break a camel's back. And I think that's just what happened.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Again, we're speaking to the mother of the late Eric Garner. That is
tearing up. No, I don't condone that.
Yes, and I'm happy to hear you say that, because certainly nobody wants to see more people get hurt. There's no question about that. What would you say to law enforcement, particularly what would you say to the police officers that, well, let's call it for what it is, murdered your son, Eric Garner, and what would you say to the police officers in the George Floyd case? What would you say to some of these police officers right now if you had the opportunity?
I would tell them that they do not belong on the force, because they do not know how to conduct with human dignity, and all men and all women should receive human dignity, and they did not get that, and our sons did not deserve to die like that. No one's children did.
Can you explain to us where you're at now? Have you received any type of financial compensation? Can you share with us that? And where is, as far as any criminal charges filed with any of the other officers? I know you mentioned you wanted to get some of those other officers fired. Where are we at right now? Have you received any compensation, and what have you heard about those other officers, and is there a possibility they could still lose their job?
No, I haven't, but the family, the kids did, and I just feel like, none of those officers should keep their job. Oh, I'm going to have to stop now. I have to get out.
No problem. Mrs. Carr, I know this is painful for you. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your feelings. We appreciate you, and God bless you. Thank you so much. Okay, that is, yes, you bet. That is, thank you. It's truly an honor. Thank you. That is Gwen Carr, the mother of the late Eric Garner. You can hear the pain in her voice. You can hear how difficult it is for her to talk about the passing of her son. No mother should ever have to bury their son. I agree with her that what happened to her son, Eric Garner, it's a tragedy. I also agree with her. I don't know if I agree with all the officers being fired. I certainly believe that one officer who put him in a chokehold could have been criminally charged. I certainly agree with that. I think this case is even more definitive. And I don't mean any disrespect to Eric Garner or his mother or the family, because what happened to Eric Garner was a travesty and it should have never happened. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some criminal acts being made there. But what I am saying is I think in this George Floyd case, it is even more, I hate to use the term black and white, but I'm going to use it here. It is.
Well, it's certainly much more apparent.
Yes.
It's a clear-cut situation, kind of like the Ahmaud Arbery situation. It's much more clear-cut, in my personal opinion.
Well, there's no question it is. But she said some interesting things there that I agree with. Officers like this should never be on the streets. She said Eric Garner wasn't even selling cigarettes. I'm going to believe her. He had just broken up a fight. He seemed extremely agitated. I'm talking about Eric Garner now. He seemed I watched the video again last night. I hadn't seen it in years. He seemed extremely agitated, these police officers, like they had done this to him before. And
well, the conversation was that he had been basically asked not to do or not to sell cigarettes outside of that particular place almost 30 times in the last couple of years, and so it's good to hear that is not what was taking place.
But even if he was selling cigarettes, again, I pose this question to our listeners, whether it's Eric Garner or George Floyd. I pose this question: if Eric Garner was white, would it have been the same result? If George Floyd was white, would they have treated him the same way? And the answer that I give is no. And by the way, I am not trying to race bait here. I am being honest.
Well, you're asking a legitimate question, I think.
I am being honest. I think the answer is no.
Now, what if Eric Garner wasn't 6'7", 360 pounds? Because he was an enormous human being.
Here's why I don't think so. George Floyd is a perfect example of that. He was a tall guy, but he wasn't large. He looked like he weighed maybe 180. He looked like me, only I'm white.
Right.
Okay? He looked like he was 180, 190 pounds. 3 cops had their legs, arms, or knee over this man. Is that necessary?
Of course not.
Okay, so there's my answer. I don't think Eric Garner's height or weight had much to do with anything. I think it had everything to do with police wanting to use force when it shouldn't have gotten to that point. Now, here's where
I think that the police officer who put Eric Garner in a chokehold was a smaller guy and felt intimidated because of his physical imposing presence.
Well, listen, when you feel intimidated, it should be if the guy has a weapon and you feel like you're in dangerous bodily harm. There were 4 or 5 other officers there. No officer in that situation should have felt like their life was in jeopardy because the guy didn't have any weapons on him and he wasn't throwing punches or anything. Was he a big guy? Sure. But they put him to the ground and then he says he can't breathe, very similar to George Floyd. When a guy says he can't breathe, and he's already detained in handcuffs, there is absolutely no reason, and I mean no reason. Now listen, if any of these people, if Eric Garner or George Floyd, if they were throwing punches, if they were injuring officers, if police thought they might have a weapon, completely different circumstances. I say everything and anything is on the table. Pull out your gun. Shoot the guy if you think your life is in harm. That was not the case in the Eric Garner situation, and it certainly was not the case in the George Floyd situation. We're going to take some phone calls now. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Again, 257-5396. That was a very powerful and difficult interview to do. We just had the mother of the late Eric Garner on the line. Very similar circumstances, at least with what Eric Garner said moments before he lost his life. I can't breathe. That's what George Floyd said. I can't breathe, sir. Please. I can't breathe. How can anybody defend the actions of the police in that situation? Again, that number is 257-5396. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinions on this. Don't care what the color of your skin is right now. I want to hear from you. 257-5396. Let's go to Chris. Chris, you are first up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, man, I hang out with some real tough guys, and they're fighters and all that stuff. And we watched that news broadcast last night of this guy, and I'll tell you what, man, that was a pretty bad thing to watch. And even the rough guys were like, man, that cop's got to go down.
Right.
And the guy, and then there was that one. I don't know if he was an Asian cop. The guy that was sort of
correct.
In the crowd back
Yep.
up.
Yep.
He didn't say a thing.
Chris, can I add? Chris, can I add something to that? Chris, let me add something to that. Give you a little tidbit. This is from what I've heard. I believe it to be true. The guy who had the knee over George Floyd is married to the Asian officer's sister, from what I understand. That is, yeah. So that's yeah.
You know, bad guys run together. So, you can't blame all the cops, because I know a lot of good dudes who are cops.
As do I.
But I'll tell you what, this dude needs to be an example made big time.
You're damn right. And you know what? I think those 3 other officers that were standing around could be an accessory, and I think you need to make an example out of them as well.
Yeah, because, even if you see a fight and you see the guy getting beat up pretty bad, someone's got to step in and say, that's enough,
Exactly.
You can't take it that far. It's crazy.
Yeah, Chris, I agree.
And I hope something happens to the guy because he doesn't. The guy didn't deserve to die. That's for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. Good phone call. I appreciate you, and you're absolutely right. Let's not forget about those 3 other officers. 2 of them actually had arms and legs over George Floyd in another camera that's showing that. And then you had that other officer, Asian, who was doing nothing but standing there defending the other officers. They're an accessory. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
Yeah, guys. So these conversations are really cute now. We're putting everybody on the radio. The bottom line is, look, these cops know what they're doing. Each one of them, what the gear they're carrying is about 40 to 50 pounds. So that's easily 220 pounds at each area. You guys are dithering back and forth about 1 cop, 3 cops. I've been teaching my nieces and nephews, to take care of yourselves. But yeah, you guys are not getting it. America,
Okay, so hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Stop. Okay, you need to stop for a second. No, excuse me. You're going to stop for a second. Now you're going to listen to me. What are you talking about? For the last hour and a half, excuse me, it's my turn. No, pot him down, pot him down, pot him down, pot him down. You're not going to hold your anger because of these 4 officers towards me, sir. For the last hour and a half, I don't know if you have plugs in your ears. For the last hour and a half, I said those cops are murderers. I hope they spend the rest of their life behind bars. We just had Eric Garner's mother on the line. I sympathize with her. You know what? I do support officers, the ones that do their jobs appropriately. Never have I said I support these officers who killed George Floyd or Eric Garner or some of these other cases that we talk about on a regular basis. So with all due respect, sir, what the hell are you talking about?
And I certainly support the badge, but do I support these 4 officers, particularly the one that had his knee on George Floyd's neck while he was listening to him groan and moan and plead for his life while his hand was in his pocket? Of course not, and neither does 99.99% of the country.
Sir,
and due process is going to take place, and these people will. I mean, that officer's life is most likely over, and the 3 officers that were around him, they won't be police officers ever again, and their lives will be drastically altered as well.
I wanted to bring that guy back on.
We can't make this situation. We can't just call all police officers, scumbags because of the actions of these 4 and that one particular police officer.
What a shocker that guy hangs up the phone. He calls what we're doing cute. You know what you did is cute. What do you think, sir? You think all white people are defending the cops who did this? Why don't you wake up and smell the coffee? Have you been watching the news lately, you dummy? There's not one person on TV, white or black, that is supporting what happened to George Floyd. What the hell are you talking about? You think all white people are backing these police officers because they have badges? You're an idiot if you think that.
What are you supporting? Total anarchy?
Well, the guy,
a war against the police department? A war against all police officers? Okay, well, is that what you're supporting?
You know what? That sounded like one of the idiots that was in Minneapolis yesterday that was burning down buildings. He was probably there last night. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. One of those guys, that is calling officers the N-word and thinks that's going to help his cause. Let's go. You're really cute, sir. Pharrell, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Pharrell?
How you guys doing?
Doing good, Pharrell. What's on your mind?
So I kind of had something to say, and then I just listened to what just happened previously, and now I feel like I kind of want to address that. As far as the just the hatred for all cops sort of thing, I think people. We understand that cops are individual people. I think people understand that. We understand that those people have families, those people have a job that they have to do, but there is an issue that goes on into the culture of policing that refuses to be addressed. And we've seen this for how many times? How many times have we seen, just countless examples. There shouldn't have to be hashtags. Like, I saw a post the other day where someone was trying to share just all this stuff. They had to stop because Instagram was like, there's too many hashtags you can put in a post.
Yeah.
This is something that seriously needs to be addressed.
There's no question. There's no question, sir, that this has been, stay on the line. There's no question that this has been going on for decades and decades. I think Will Smith said it best when he said yesterday on social media, it's not that we have more racism now and more police brutality. The difference is that now it's actually being recorded. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree with that, but also there's a problem I have being a black man in this country to watch that video and to know that there were 3 other police officers who did nothing.
No question.
You said to keep trusting the system, to keep trusting in the police force, to keep trusting that there are good ones doing their job. 1 out of 4. There's a 25% chance that somebody else could have stepped in and did something, and nobody did a damn thing.
I agree.
Why are you asking us to be peaceful right now?
Okay, let me address that, sir. Stay on the line.
Hold on.
All right, quickly.
We try to talk countless times. Words apparently don't do anything.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. The riots in L.A., the Rodney King situation, when people were committing violence, did that help anybody? Did that change anything? Did that change systemic racism?
It brought awareness.
I didn't ask you. Hold on a second. I didn't ask you if it brought awareness. I asked you a very specific question. Awareness, listen, if you're not aware that there's racial tension and racial divide between and inappropriate behavior between police and minorities, then you're a racist yourself. I'm not saying you. I'm saying to white people out there. What I'm asking you is a very specific question. What good is it going to do for your cause if you have minorities out there burning down buildings and committing violent acts? You actually think that's going to help the situation? Do you really believe that, sir?
I don't condone it, but I refuse to condemn it because I understand it.
So you're not going to condemn somebody going into a store and burning down a private business, somebody that had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, sir, I completely disagree with you, but we'll take it to the other side. I appreciate the phone call. We'll take some more phone calls on the other side of the break. The number to call is 702-257-5396. Maybe there's other people out there that think the way that last caller thinks. You're not going to condemn people that are burning down buildings and hurting communities. This has nothing to do right now with what the police officers did. I'm sorry, but it's not going to help your cause. And he answered the question for himself. I said, did what happened with Martin Luther King in L.A. change anything? He said, well, it brought awareness. Well, geez, that really did a lot of good, didn't it, sir?
It's destroying your community, and it's putting people out of work.
That's stupidity.
By destroying their businesses.
That's stupidity. If you think that police officers are all of a sudden going to say, oh, you know what? Maybe we should stop doing this because they're burning down our city. Guess what? There's not one police officer that's thinking that way. Trust me.
Now, that being said, the entire Minneapolis Police Department needs to be thoroughly reviewed and vetted, because this is a consistent this is consistent behavior within that police department. This is the second time in the last 5 years between the Philando Castile situation and the George Floyd situation that something like this has made national news.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue that topic on the other side of the break. We're also going to take your phone calls. 702-257-5396. Do you condone the riots? Do you condone burning down buildings? Or are you on my side, and do you think these rioters should be called out? 702-257-5396. The Vegas Take will be back right after this.
SportsX Radio Nation, what's up? It's Ken Thompson, host of SportsX Radio, reminding you to catch me at my new time, 8 to 10 p.m. for the local Vegas sports coverage, plus the national scene as well. That's SportsX Radio on the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN.
Join Coach Harvey Hyde and Chuck Hayes Saturday evenings from 9 to 10 p.m. for Trojan Football Report, presented by South Point Hotel and Casino, here on 101.5 FM and 720 AM, KDWN, where Las Vegas comes to talk.
Secretary Mark Esper says he supports extending the National Guard's federal deployment for coronavirus relief beyond the planned June 24th cutoff if needed to fight in the pandemic.
We got to make sure on the back end we provide enough time for a guardsman or reservist to do a restriction of movement, if you will, so that if they've been exposed, if they've been on the front lines, and there's any chance that they've been exposed, 75-year-old back home, back to their community.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is allowing businesses to deny entry to people not wearing masks or face coverings. 10 weeks, the pandemic has killed more than 100,000 Americans, more than 40 million jobs.
Plus, I'm guessing that guy has some
Colin Kaepernick has said on social media it's time for a revolution.
Can be restored within a year.
Maybe that means he'll make more money.
No, he won't. He'll lose his
It's time to check
how
the
bad
roads
I want
from
to
the road.
Traffic studio. How bad I was going to pick up the mic and go.
This report
Also, to
sponsored
quit
by Boost
Will
Mobile's
Smith,
new
parents
upgraded
just don't
network.
understand.
Watch for slowing for the crash
Dude,
in Tropicana and
I came
Minneapolis.
back close to doing it.
That would delay
Like, you know what?
I'll tell you what.
Now is not the time to choke.
If it's time for revolution, it better be more organized.
You could use an alternate like 8th Street or Rancho or 19th Boulevard instead. Skirt the slow and go that way. No delays to reports. I-15 north and southbound between the Spaghetti Bowl and Tropicana. Step up with Boost Mobile's new upgraded network. Stronger signal, faster speeds, more coverage. Switch today and get ready to upgrade your life. Step up with Boost Mobile. I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
I've always wanted to learn another language, but every time I try, it never sticks.
So I decided to give Babbel a try, and I really like the teaching method of the app. I started with the beginner lesson on Babbel, and it starts with simple words and phrases, and soon you're putting those words into a conversation. Each lesson takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and they're all really different, which keeps things interesting. The app is really smart. It actually keeps track of the words I'm struggling with, so I can practice them and get better. I chose Babbel because it was created by real language teachers. They built it around real life, how people actually communicate, and what they care about. I can't wait to use my new language skills in the real world. Dos cervezas, por favor.
With Babbel, get conversational in Spanish, French, German, and more. It just takes 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com or download the Babbel app and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com.
The water is waiting. And this summer, Yamaha is dedicated to helping you get back out there by offering 0 down, 0% APR, and 0 payments for 180 days on all new Yamaha boats. This year, summer's on us, because a little time on the water with Yamaha is what we all need. Boating Lake Mead is located on Boulder Highway, just south of Desert Inn Road. BoatingLakeMead.com.
Mark Levin, weekdays 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM. KDON.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. By the way, coming up here at the top of the hour, former Miss Nevada stripped of her crown because she supports Donald Trump. Her name is Katie Williams. She'll be joining us. Now she's running for something else. We'll explain what that is. Coming up here in just a little bit, we've been talking about the George Floyd murder, whatever you want to call it, lynching. I mean, it just, we were just talking about this poor kid, Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, that was gunned down. Why is it that these things keep happening on a regular basis? We're discussing that, but there's two sides to this. The one side is systemic racism and the mistreatment by police on minorities, why I believe all 4 of those officers should be punished harshly. But then the other side of it, we have these rioters out there that think it's okay to throw stuff at police that had nothing to do with this, to burn down buildings. Local business owners had nothing to do with this, and they think that's okay. That's an okay response. How did it work out with the Rodney King stuff? Didn't work out very well. We didn't end systemic racism then. It's not going to end systemic racism now if we see Colin Kaepernick take another knee. 702-257-5396 is the number to call, and I promised I would get back to our busy phone calls. So why don't we do that? I believe our next caller is Mike. Mike, thanks for calling in to the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good. Doing okay.
My heart goes out to Floyd's mom. I feel her pain in her conversation with you. I can imagine, well, I cannot imagine what she's been going through. I am a grandfather of 5 beautiful girls, 3 of them which are mixed, African American and Caucasian, and I personally have felt racism from African Americans and from Caucasians with the stares, and they don't verbally make comments, but the stares. And
Right.
This has been going on for some time now. My family has also been a victim of racial crime. My younger brother, Jose, from many years ago in the 70s, I'm in my late 50s now, we were in Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up and was raised, and he was killed by a stray bullet from a different race, but while playing on the sidewalk in front of
I'm so sorry to hear that.
we lived in.
That is awful.
And that created a lot of racial tension in the Italian neighborhood that I was brought up in, and I was I felt the culture shock from that.
Mike, can I ask you a question? And by the way, I'm so sorry that you and your family had to go through that. That's horrible. So let me ask you this. As someone who has suffered through a loss like that, and as you said to start this phone call, and you're absolutely right, you can't even imagine, what Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, is going through. What do you think would be, and I hate to use the term justice, because George Floyd is never going to come back, but what do you think should happen to those 4 officers?
I think those officers should be tried and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I don't think any of them should get away with anything. I think the officer with his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck while Mr. Floyd was pleading for his life that he could not breathe, I think he should get the most out of the justice system.
Agree.
Whether it be life in prison, death sentence, whatever it is.
Yep.
I certainly believe in an eye for an eye. I don't know if anybody would agree with me or not, but I think the other officers that were on the back end watching this, I think that they saw what was going on at that moment, and I think it was more of a joyful moment for them to show that their badge, their force. One of those officers, at least one of them, should have stopped this.
Yeah.
And pulled the other officer off and said, "Wait,
Agree.
This man cannot breathe."
Mike, I couldn't agree with you more. I got to get to some other callers. Here's the one thing where I might disagree with you. I don't think I would give any of those officers the death penalty. The officer, I agree with you, that had the knee over George Floyd's neck. I don't know if I would support the death penalty because it doesn't appear to me that it would be premeditated. Doesn't mean it wasn't race related. But with that being said, let me put it to you this way. I think at minimum that guy should get 30 to 40 years. If he ever gets out of jail again, he'll be an old man.
Yeah, his life is over, Brian.
Yes.
That guy's life is over.
Which is good.
And those other 3 police officers should either be accessory to whatever murder that he is charged with, or they should be charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Yep. I want to go to Michelle next, I believe. By the way, the number to call, 257-5396. Can we go to Michelle? Michelle, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Michelle?
Hi. I definitely believe that officer should get more than just, what'd you say, 30 to something years?
Well, that's minimum. That's minimum, in my opinion.
And he was probably, 42 years old?
He's up there.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
The main thing that really bothered me more than the race thing is the fact that you could see it was like, I felt like it was more of a major hate crime because of the fact that even when he stopped moving, he didn't even move his knee. He was still sitting there with his hand in his pocket.
Michelle, you're right. Michelle, you're right. I'm not trying to disagree with you here. I'm on your side on this, but I'm just thinking it from a logistical standpoint. In the courtroom, from a law standpoint, it's going to be very, very difficult to give this guy more than 30 or 40 years. Now, the reason for that, besides the fact, sadly, that he's a police officer, it's going to be very hard to prove that it was premeditated, and it's going to be very hard to prove that he was intentionally trying to kill this guy. And in most cases where you get 30 to 40 years, you can prove intent, and you could prove that that person was trying to kill that individual. I'm not defending this police officer. If they gave him the electric chair and he got the crap beat out of him every day for the rest of his life, I wouldn't feel sorry for him. I'm just speaking from a law standpoint, Michelle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Also, with the other officers, I wish I could remember that movie that my husband and I watched. It was about the New York City corruption with the police officers, and this guy tried to stand against his own because there was so much corruption, and he just kept getting beat up. And I can't remember the movie. I wish I could tell everybody so they could watch it.
I think I know what movie you're talking about, but when we talk about these other 3 officers, Michelle, what were they afraid of? They certainly weren't afraid of. They weren't. Yeah, they weren't afraid of George Floyd. You know what they were afraid of? They were afraid of their peers. They were wussies. Right. They were afraid that their peers might look down on them, and maybe they wouldn't get. They'd have to buy beers that night. They were afraid. That's the sad part.
That's why I think that definitely something has to be done with them as well.
No question. They're accessories.
Because that's going to make everybody, a next officer that witnesses that and doesn't totally agree, hey, this is my life on the line too. And, stop that.
If you see a man in a bar raping a woman, and you see men in the bar that are standing there watching, not doing anything, they are called accessories. This is no different, only, rape is a horrible crime, one of the worst things you could do to somebody, but murder is even worse, and that's what happened here. Michelle, it's good to hear from you. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. 702-257-5396.
By the way, the Justice Department has just made a statement that the George Floyd death investigation is now the top priority after the violent protests.
I certainly would hope so, because more lives now are at risk. Agree with it or not, more lives are at risk now because of these protests. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Dottie. Dottie, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Dottie?
Good morning.
Good morning, Dottie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I would agree with everybody that says that officer, that has his knee on the gentleman's neck should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I mean, but what I can't get out of my head, and I watched that video a couple times last night, was the look on that cop's face. when he was being filmed, and it just made me want to just throw up. It was just horrible.
I'm going to let you do it. Dottie, I'm going to let you describe it for some of our listeners that have not maybe seen the video or did not see the look on that officer's face. Can you describe what you saw?
When the camera was on him, he looked at that camera like he was some arrogant SOB that had the right to do what he was doing, and I don't believe he was.
You're right.
I think he was wrong. He should be prosecuted for it. The guys that watched him should be prosecuted for it. And it's disgusting.
It looked like he actually enjoyed what he was doing.
Yeah.
With his hand in his pocket, and when because he could definitely hear the noises that George Floyd was making, and then you're right. Even when he died, he didn't take his knee off.
Dottie, and I agree.
He was taking satisfaction,
no question,
in murdering and ending the life of somebody else.
And I think that's what Dottie was conveying when she's
Part to that, the looters.
Yes.
And all of that stuff that goes on. I know that they're mad. I know that they're trying to retaliate, but honestly, all they're doing is making people that, some racist.
Yeah.
Toward them.
It doesn't help the cause. Let me ask you this, Dottie. If you don't mind me asking, you're a Caucasian woman. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir. I am.
Okay, so in my late 60s. I appreciate that. Let me ask you this question, because there are some conservative talk show hosts out there. Not going to name names. Some hosts. Yeah, and that's fine. I've got no problem with that. And by the way, for the record, everything you've said in this phone call, I agree with. But the reason why I say conservative, because there are some shows that I was listening to yesterday that are saying that they don't believe that this death and this murder had anything to do with race. They said, well, you know what? I don't see black and white, and I don't think necessarily that these officers did this because of the color of George Floyd's skin. I think those people that make statements like that are an embarrassment to us. What do you say to that?
I would probably agree with that. I watched the part where they put him up against the wall. The guy didn't look like he was resisting them whatsoever. He didn't look like. If there were 4 guys there, for gosh sake, if they can't take down one guy, if he's resisting them, something's wrong.
I agree.
Find a different job.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more, Dottie. It's good to hear from you, and we appreciate your phone call and your perspective. Thank you very much. 702.
Have a great day,
Appreciate
thanks a lot,
it.
Dottie.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. I believe Troy is next. Troy, what's going on?
Hey, Troy.
Hey, guys. Hey, when I was a kid, my dad died. I watched my dad die of my stepdad of a blood clot. And the symptom of that was he was breathing as hard as he could, drawing air into his lungs, and he could speak. But he wasn't getting air through his blood. His blood wasn't circulating, so he died. And my point is that when these guys are cutting off these guys' blood circulation, they can still draw air into their lungs. They can still speak, but it's an illusion that they're doing okay. So
right.
The cops should know that when people start saying, I can't breathe,
right.
They're not lying. It's not something they're making up.
You're right.
Breathing,
no, you're right. Troy, you make a very good point there, and I'm sorry, by the way, what you had to deal with in your family. Let me just add something, Troy, and you probably saw this. Even when this guy went completely limp and he was dead, he was clinically dead, it appears. He wasn't breathing. Even after that situation, the cop was such a piece of garbage, he kept his knee over this guy's neck until the paramedics arrived. To me, that's an animal. You're treating this guy like an animal.
I read somewhere 9 minutes, Brian.
Yeah, it's and you make a good point. When somebody says they can't breathe and they already have handcuffs on them, as an officer, what are you afraid of, right?
Yeah, no, that officer, as far as I'm concerned, is evil and just needs to go to prison.
You're right, Troy. You're right.
When I did watch the video, and I wanted somebody to go bull rush that cop and knock him off him, or if somebody had a gun, 20/20 hindsight, you could shoot the cop and it would have been the right damn thing.
Yeah, I'll say this, Troy. I've heard other people say that if somebody on the sidewalks had a gun, you should have shot the cop. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that one, because you know what happens in that situation? The cops pull out their guns, more people die, and it would have been a mess, and I hate to say it, it would have been even worse than what took place with one person being murdered. I totally understand where you're coming from, but trust me, if somebody pulled out a gun in that situation and tried to take matters into their own hands, more people would have died. There would have been more carnage, and it would have been even worse. But I understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate the call. We got to get to some other phone calls, my friend. Thank you. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Rose. Rose, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Rose?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Doing okay.
I can relate to this. I am a psychiatric nurse, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I say takedowns, that's what we do. I mean, when it gets out of control, I've seen it time and time over again. I oversee overpowering. They take them down. They got their positioning wrong, and I can't breathe. It's a huge red flag.
It is. So let me ask you a question, having some experience with like what you said. Tell me if you agree with me or not. I think not with all these cops, not with the majority of them, but I think with a portion of them, they decided to be police officers because maybe they're insecure with themselves. Maybe they were made fun of a lot in school. And then when you give them a badge and you give them a gun, it gives them a sense of power and a power over society. And I think they look at it as an ego trip rather than protecting and serving. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
So you agree, yeah. So how do you see? This is my problem, Rose. How do you stop people with those character traits from becoming officers? I don't know how.
They don't belong in their position. They need to be fired because that is not this guy's first rodeo.
No, there's no question. And the guy, by the way, who put the knee over George Floyd. There was another instance where I believe he was involved in a shooting where the county had to pay off somebody $25,000. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about the history of these police officers. I find it hard to believe that you murder somebody like that and you don't have a history. And then listen, there's the alternative.
And actually, there was possible vice presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar was just reported last night as to have basically chosen to not press charges against several police officers in the entire state of Minnesota that have done things similar to this.
You're not going to get me to defend Amy Klobuchar.
This has happened on a consistent basis, and there hasn't been a lot done about it in the entire state of Minnesota.
As a society, we need to be held accountable, and what I mean by that is this: whether you're Amy Klobuchar or people doing a radio show, if you're going to go on the radio and you're going to say, "I don't think this had anything to do with race," you're an idiot. If you're Amy Klobuchar and you're involved in a specific case like this one and you defend the police, you're an idiot. I don't care who you are. The point I'm trying to make is this. It is fair to call out those who are breaking the law while they're protesting, and that's what I'm doing. But we have to call out these bad cops that pretend to be cops. Some of them are murderers. It is important for us to call them out, and it is important for us as individuals, as citizens, to record anything that you see that cops are doing, or anybody for that matter, that is breaking the law. And I am so glad that those innocent bystanders on the sidewalk decided to record this situation. And that dumbass in Georgia, who since was arrested for murder, by the way, with the McMichaels, he thought he was doing them a favor by recording it. The truth of the matter is, if that recording isn't there, nobody's arrested in Georgia either. We live in a society right now.
He was arrested last week, Brian.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
We are in a society right now where I personally believe all police officers, no excuses, should have to have body cameras on at all times with audio. And if there's any excuse, if they're going to talk about the budget or they're going to say it's voluntary, then they're full of crap, because it is not only to protect us, but it's to protect them. Officers absolutely need to have body cameras on 24/7. So if, and I mean if, somebody isn't killed and they survive, they can file a lawsuit or they can request body camera footage.
And for anyone who's maybe this particular officer, David Chauvin, supported Donald Trump, or he's a Republican, something along those lines. Minneapolis has a Democratic mayor, and the Democratic mayor has chosen the chief of police. And so there should not be any type of political association with the Republican Party or any type of blame put on the President of the United States for this particular incident, because that is not the case according to political lines.
Number to call, 702-257-5396. Let's go to L, who's been waiting very patiently on hold. L, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, L?
Good morning, guys. I guess I got lost in the shuffle. Well, you know what? I'm one of those who have friends of all races. And I just have a message for those who just don't seem to understand the emotion and the pain that results when these horrible things keep happening. Because I can remember when President Obama, when he was overcome with emotion over Trayvon Martin, everybody called him divisive. What I would say to these white people and anybody who can't seem to understand this, I suggest you go back and revisit the O.J. Simpson verdict. Now, my white friends were incensed. I couldn't console them, and I, too, personally agreed with them. But there were blacks who thought that it was good that they got off because of the police. But I could not console them. So to everybody, all of these white people who don't understand why people loot, and I disagree with all of this foolishness that they're doing, but this is pent-up emotion. And it seems like nothing's happening. The Garner mother said nothing happened. This is, you have to, I don't want to say you have to be black to understand, but it certainly helped. And
I don't deny that. Yeah, go ahead.
To not expect our president who leads, he is black. And the fact that he was upset over Trayvon Martin said it could be my son, I couldn't believe the negativity. How could that be negative? And it's just that people don't get it. If you're not black, you don't get it.
And I understand. I understand the point that you're trying to make, and I've said as you know, Elle, I've said this on the show before. I don't know what it's like to be black, and I don't pretend that I do, even though I certainly never defend a police officer if I think they're wrong, no matter what the victim's skin color is, and certainly this case is a perfect example of that. With that being said, even if you are emotional, and I have no doubt that all these protesters are extremely emotional, and I'm sure at times they've been mistreated by the police. I'm talking about the minorities here. I totally sympathize with that. I still don't think that is ever an excuse to hurt an innocent person, in this case, police that had nothing to do with this crime that was committed, and local businesses, burning down their businesses, looting, stealing. That is, it's one thing to be emotional and to be upset, and it's another thing to commit a crime. And I think we both agree on that, Elle, but it's good to hear from you. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Mario. Mario, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Mario?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
The only thing with me is that I don't understand why cops don't get held to the same standard as other, humans. It seems to be that when they commit a crime, it's not even okay. They just get off with like a slap on the wrist, and that's the problem, no?
No, I agree with you. Listen, I have a reporter background. I was a news reporter for 10 years, and I've covered these cases time and time again. I covered the Costco shooting that happened here in Las Vegas. I covered the ice cream truck shooting that happened here in Henderson, where a woman driving an ice cream truck was shot and killed. She did have a knife in her hand, but she was on her knees. I covered a lot of different cases, and in just about all of these cases, not all of them, but most of them, the officers go off scot-free. Now, why? Because we didn't see video. We didn't see it as national news. Nobody videotaped the incident. We didn't have body cameras. So the police in certain situations were never held accountable. And what I'm trying to say, and I agree with you, Mario, is that standard needs to change. And I'll tell you, if minorities really want to do something, here's what they do. Demand that body cameras and audio are mandatory, not voluntary. Why would an officer not want to put their body camera on? Well, because they're trying to hide something.
The problem is it's not even with the cops. It's above the judges. It's the whole system. And, there should be a third party who oversights this, it's got to stop at some point,
Well, they had that, though. They had that. It was called a coroner's inquiry, and that never worked because even the prosecutors, were on the police officer's side in many situations. I agree with what you're saying. All I'm trying to say, sir, is that if we had officers mandatory body cameras 24/7, if you have video and audio, then you can't defend your actions if you broke the law. You know what I mean?
That the system doesn't.
Right, exactly.
It's sad, man, and it's so painful to see someone go that way. Because I can imagine it. You being your brother, you have to imagine it as it being your son.
Oh, it's awful. It's heart-wrenching. You're right.
I would have, God forbid, said, you're ever in that situation, that cop is going down.
You're right. Listen, Mario, I can't even imagine if that was somebody in my family, the anger and what I'd be feeling right now, what I would want to do to that police officer. I can't even begin to imagine, but I appreciate the phone call. All right, here's what we're going to do. I've been wanting to get this lady on the line for a long time. Her name is Katie Williams, also known as Corona Katie. She is the former Miss Nevada that was stripped of her crown because she put up some pro-Donald Trump tweets. Very interesting story. Well, now she's running for the school board. She said some controversial things on social media before, even that include the coronavirus, and we're going to get to that with her. I'm on her side, and I'll get to this more on the other side of the break. I don't think she should have been stripped of her crown. I'll explain why on the other side of the break. But she said some very controversial things when it comes to the coronavirus on Twitter, and is this the type of person you want on the school board? Well, guess what? Katie Williams is going to be joining us next on the show. I'm going to let her defend some of her statements, and we're going to talk about that. Coming up next, Corona Katie. You're listening to the Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn.
When I adopted her, she was a mess. Scabs, itching, licking, missing fur, hot spots, a thin, dull coat. So I take the dog to the vet for the standard run-of-the-mill tests and treatments. No results. I hear your advertisement on the radio. DINOVITE.com. So I get the 5-pound box of Dinovite and the Lico Chops within a 4-week total. Instead of a German Setter, I have a German Shepherd. Sheba is a 105 lean pounds of shiny, smooth, happy dog for life because she gets fed Dynamite. And the results, they're just incredibly outstanding. And she loves it. When you rescue a dog, you have to do the right thing. You've got to feed them right for life. Do the Dynavite. Dynavite for life.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
859-428-1000. DINOVITE.com.
Parents, stop making excuses for your children and do something to help them for the rest of their lives. Sign up at Infinity the Math Institute for the best math tutoring in the country, the best online math tutoring in the world. We help struggling students excel and help successful students get to the next level. We are also here for parents, offering free seminars explaining what your students are learning, why it seems different from what you learned, and how you can help your child do better. We also offer super affordable SAT prep classes on Fridays before our super popular Friday Fun Nights, where students and parents meet like-minded and driven families in a fun and constructive atmosphere. Coming to Infinity will be the best decision you've ever made for your child. Call 702-768-1777 or visit themathinstitute.com and tell them the Vegas Take sent you for a free assessment. That's 702-768-1777. Because at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Your home for Sean Hannity. KDWN Las Vegas, KKLZ HD2 Las Vegas, a Beasley Media Group station.
Special report coronavirus update. Could keeping 6 feet of separation put you 6 feet under? A new study in the journal Science suggests that 6 feet is not enough distance to stop the spread of coronavirus. The study which encourages the wearing of face masks. Here's correspondent Jim Roop.
The guidance on the 6-foot social distancing rule is based on respiratory droplets studies carried out in the 1930s. Dr. Jean Marazzo is an infectious disease specialist at the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
So that's the threshold that we have been using, even when we talk about bringing people back to work.
Technology today can measure better the spread of larger droplets and so-called submicron aerosols. So larger droplets, once thought to travel 6 feet, new research suggests strong cough or sneeze droplets can travel up to 20 feet, and the submicron aerosols much farther and much wider, suggesting the WHO's 6-foot rule not far enough, especially indoors. I'm Jim Roop.
And I'm Mike Moss. Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Arredondo says he will not allow the rioting and looting that followed the death of a black man, George Floyd, while he was being kneed in the neck by police.
There is currently a deficit of hope in our city. And as I wear this uniform before you, I know that this department has contributed to that deficit of hope.
Mayor Jacob Fry.
We can be better than we have been. We must confront our shortcomings with both humility as well as hope.
Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins.
Until we name this
virus, this disease that has infected America for the past 400 years, we will never, ever resolve this issue.
The FBI and U.S. Attorney are investigating Floyd's death as a criminal matter. Floyd's family says it wants peace and not rioting, but the family says it also wants justice for his death. On Wall Street, the Dow up 192. I'm Mike Moss.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Lerner and Rowe Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by Lowe's. A crash reported Tropicana at Pecos still active. Expect delays at the intersection or take an alternate route. You could use Harmon or Russell instead. And now reports of a crash Durango at Flamingo. There you could use Rainbow or Buffalo, good alternates in the area to get you around that one. And a minor accident reported on the 95 northbound at Horizon Boulevard in Henderson. Watch for highway units with the scene. Pros, shop for brands you trust on LowesForPros.com and get free standard shipping on qualifying orders of $45 or more. Restrictions apply. Contiguous U.S. only. I'm John Michaels from the K-Don Traffic Center.
Get the rest you deserve with Helix Sleep. Helix makes personalized mattresses to fit your unique body type and sleep preferences and give you the best sleep of your life. Go to HelixSleep.com and get up to $200 off mattress orders.
Sometimes you hear an idea or learn about a company and say, finally, it's about time. That's what I said when I met the team at Homey. With Homey, you get a local real estate expert and everything you expect with a traditional agent. Everything except those high fees and commissions. Homey sellers save $10,000 on average. Finally, you can buy and sell confidently and save thousands in good times and bad. Check out Homey.com or just text JD to 88588 to receive $250 off your listing fee. Homey's got your back.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Whether you enjoy classical, rock, or heavy metal, we all march to the beat of our own drummer or guitarist. That's why Views Alto offers you more ways to vape your way. It's available in 5 bold color options, 3 smooth tastes, and 3 nicotine levels. It's your vape, your way. Views, charge beyond. Underage sale prohibited.
Hey, Chuck, I gotta tell you, I love the fact that I can find out exactly how much I qualify for at Dollar Loan Center, even before I need a loan.
People are always curious about how much cash they can get, and it's way better to know this before you're in a pinch. Let's say you don't quite need a loan today, but might every so often and really just want to find out how much you qualify for and how it works. We do this every day at Dollar Loan Center, and the customers really dig it.
And it's free, right?
Of course. We process your application, let you know how much you qualify for, and then you're ready to go when you need a loan down the line.
That was Chuck, founder of Dollar Loan Center, where you can get up to $5,000 in just minutes, or just stop in to see how much you qualify for. We have over 50 locations, and our friendly Dollar Loan Center staff are ready to help. You can also apply over the phone or online at don'tbebroke.com.
Licensed by Nevada Financial Institutions Division. Customer must meet the normal loan qualifications. To review loan qualifications, visit us at don'tbebroke.com. Certain limitations may apply. Loans are subject to approval.
101.5 FM, 720 AM. K-Don, the talk of Las Vegas. The opinions of the hosts on KDWN are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group.
Hello, everyone. This is President Trump, the greatest president in the history of presidents. And the only show I listen to is the top-rated show, Sharp and Shapiro. They are the best.
Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back, baby. It is the Vegas Take. Rolling out the red carpet for hour number 3, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us. Also broadcasting live, not just on KDWN and streaming on KDWN, but also on our YouTube page, The Vegas Take. Check us out. You can see my very pretty mug on there and everyone involved in the show and my beautiful apartment that is, I guess you could say, sort of decorated like a college dorm room. If you don't know what I mean, then you could just go on our YouTube page and check that out. But, joining us...
I'm not sure sort of is the right word there, bro.
Joining us on the line right now is former Miss Nevada, who was stripped of her crown because she is a Donald Trump supporter. I want her to explain that, and she is also running for the school board for the Clark County School District. That is Katie Williams. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Katie?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So a lot of questions to get to, Katie. You've had some controversial tweets. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I want to focus on where I defended you. And that was, and by the way, I'm not a Trump supporter by any means, but I still defended you. And the reason why I did is at the time you were Miss Nevada and they stripped you of your crown, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, just because you did some positive pro-Trump tweets. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, so the way it worked in the pageant is that you had to have a pageant page and you could have your personal page. And so you were allowed to post whatever you wanted on your personal page as long as you did not put politics or extreme religion things like on your pageant page. So pageant page was strictly pageantry, and then your personal page could be whatever it was. So I had posted, my pictures and my posts on my personal page, and the pageant system just did not approve, and they kicked me out for it. So.
Well, I think that's absurd. I think that's completely ridiculous. If you say something racist, and I'm not saying you did, or if you said something that is extremely hurtful to someone, or then I'm on their side. But to my knowledge, you didn't do that, right? All you did was make some pro-Trump comments, correct?
Yeah, and really, it was more so pro-America. I love my country and I support my president. And really, I support a lot of public figures just because I don't want them to fail, especially if they're making decisions over my life.
Well, listen, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I never wanted Donald Trump to fail. Because if he succeeds, the country succeeds. So let's get into that a little bit. I know you're running for the school board, so we'll get into that here in a little bit. But let's talk about Donald Trump. All I can do is tell you why I don't support Donald Trump, and then I want to get your opinions on why you do. But hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from here. 95% of the reason why I do not support Donald Trump because I think he's an awful human being and it has nothing to do with politics. Going after POWs, going after women based on looks. Just recently in the last week, focused on calling Joe Scarborough a murderer, conspiracy theories, making it about himself, not showing empathy towards others, siding with evil, murderous dictators on a world stage. These are just some of the reasons why I think he's an awful human being. That's why I can't support this man. So what's your side of that? Do you understand where I'm coming from, and why do you support this man?
Yeah, so I understand where a lot of people are coming from when they say they don't like President Trump because of the way he tweets out or his rhetoric or how he talks to people or describes people. And I think what most people have to understand is, where is he coming from and what's he trying to accomplish? Because it's never just at face value. There's always someone behind him kind of saying, hey, do this or do that. And you can really tell when his aide staff is tweeting for him or when it's him tweeting for him. And I've said this multiple times, when you actually watch him speak in person, you can tell when he's ad-libbing his own stuff and when he's not. And he's very good at creating, conversations about him. And he was said once, quoted, he actually said that, if I get up in the morning and I don't like what the news cycle is saying, I just send out a tweet and it all changes and it comes right back to me. So that's kind of his stardom effect that he does. He actually knows how to bring the conversation back to him constantly. And you saw this a lot, too, when he had Nancy Pelosi actually fighting with AOC. He got into it and brought the conversation back to him, and it stopped the infighting, which I didn't necessarily agree with. I figured they should just, do their thing.
No, listen, I understand. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Katie. But during a pandemic, do you think that is appropriate to be talking about the ratings, of his press conferences during a pandemic? Do you think, I guess what I'm trying to ask you, even though I don't necessarily disagree with you, do you think that's appropriate for the president to be behaving that way?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's not appropriate in the sense that I think that sometimes the country needs good news. They need hope. They don't need to see a cycle or a Twitter feed or a Facebook feed that's constantly full of negativity. And so just seeing every now and then, hey, look, we had 100,000 people recover this weekend. That's awesome. It's not that we don't mourn the people that we've lost during the pandemic or the people that we've lost because of the coronavirus in general. And that's people just who didn't have the virus, people, who committed suicide due to isolation, and people who have been in domestic abuse cases and unfortunately died. It's not that we don't mourn those people, but we do need, as humans, we need some positivity in our lives every single day.
And Brian, keep in mind that when he made those tweets, that was after CNN and MSNBC and several other news outlets were not showing his press conference. And he was basically saying, why would you not show a press conference that people want to see? You're actually costing yourself money because the ratings are so high. I think that's why he made those statements. It was more in response to them basically refusing to air it.
Okay, well, that's up to MSNBC and CNN, and it's not the prerogative or up to the President of the United States to tell the media how to do their job. That's number one. Number two, I will push back a little. Number two, Katie, here's where I will disagree with you a little bit. You talked about being positive. I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with being positive. But it's a fine line. What is positive about going after a woman based on her looks? He did that with Nancy Pelosi's teeth last month. What is positive about a conspiracy theory about accusing Joe Scarborough of murder? And then when the family speaks out and says, Mr. President, please stop, he doesn't apologize and he doubles down. What is positive about doing that? I mean, there are things that he does almost on a daily basis that's not positive.
Right. So that's two different arguments, right? So you're talking about the Joe Scarborough thing, and then you're also talking about the Nancy Pelosi thing. What I'm talking about is the daily press conferences when he comes and he addresses the nation, that he actually needs to say something positive about his ratings, or he needs to say something positive about the stock market or job economy. If he doesn't say things like that, then yeah, it doesn't become positive. It just becomes him hitting hits, right? Well, Nancy Pelosi did the same thing. You know, she called him morbidly obese, right? And so he hits back. You know, he's never been the guy that's just going to lay there and take it, and that's why he was elected. You know, because we finally saw this politician or non-politician as it be that would actually hit back, you know, and we don't like playing dirty politics. We don't like it, but if you're going to play it, you got to know how to take the hits, but you have to know how to hit back too. So with the Joe Scarborough thing, he needed to say something about it in a sense that there's a story there. You know, I mean, you have an aide who was found underneath his desk with a blow to the head, and not a single arrest was made.
But with all due respect, with all due respect, the story is there was and again, I'm going to disagree with you. There was an investigation. Okay, it happened many years ago. Not the president, not someone who doesn't have the information, because the president doesn't. There was a police professional investigation that showed that it was an accidental death. So why is it the president's duty? If you want to say Joe Scarborough is a piece of garbage or something like that, I don't agree with it, because I think the president should be held to a higher standard. But even if he did that, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it as putting up a conspiracy theory saying that Joe Scarborough basically is a murderer, and then when the family asks the president to stop, he doubles down on it. You don't have a problem with that?
Well, I don't really, because I do think there's a story there, and I think.
What do you mean there's a story there? I don't understand what you mean when you say there's a story there.
I think it would be ignorant for us to sit there and say that, yeah, like there. I think it would be ignorant for us to say that, police investigations are always perfect, right? They're just not.
Nobody's saying that.
Anybody that works in law enforcement is saying that. So, I mean, why is it, unquestionable to think that maybe something was missed?
Okay, and Brian, he did not accuse him.
Hold on. So Joe Scarborough actually went on air, and actually joked about this intern's death.
That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. And I
had a bigger issue with the president than they had with Joe Scarborough. I'm sorry. Then they're kind of hypocrites.
Okay, and I talked about that on the show, and I don't agree with what Joe Scarborough did in laughing about a death, but I don't think that should excuse, and that's not an excuse for the president and the leader of the free world. It is a conspiracy theory because there's no evidence to back up the fact that there's a story that maybe Joe Scarborough is a murderer. There's no evidence to back up that claim. That's why I call it a conspiracy theory. And what I'm saying is there should be a higher standard for the president of the United States than someone who does a talk show.
Okay, but who dictates the standard, though?
So you're okay. Well, I'm going to ask you if you're going to dictate it. You're saying that you're okay with the president of the United States, who I understand you support, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. But you're saying you have no problem with the leader of the free world going after a member of the media because the member of the media doesn't say nice things about him. So you're okay with him basically calling that member of the media a murderer, even when the family is asking the president to stop, and you have absolutely no problem with that.
Here's my thing. I have no problem with anybody in this country expressing their freedom to speak their mind.
Even if they're wrong.
That includes the president.
Even if he's wrong.
You're allowed to be wrong as a human being. You're all wrong at one point or another. So even if he's wrong and it's proven that he's wrong, I highly doubt he would come out and apologize, but that's his right. As president, as a person
Oh.
that lives in America as a U.S. citizen.
You are absolutely right. You are listen. You are absolutely right. The president has the right to say stupid things and embarrass the country. You're absolutely
You know
right.
what, Brian? He didn't. You're making it seem like he openly accused him. No, he suggested that an investigation be reopened.
We understand that.
Just the same thing he suggested with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Burisma.
We understand.
The exact same thing took place. Right.
You know, it's not just Joe Scarborough. He does it with many people.
Which doesn't make it right. Right.
He did it when the coronavirus broke out in the U.S. and he did the travel ban. Like, he does it multiple times. I'm not saying that what he does all the time makes it right. I don't necessarily always like the way that he delivers things, but at the end of the day, he gets accomplished what he needs to get accomplished. If he sees something that needs to be, attention brought to it, he's going to say something about it. And like JD said, he's never going to directly say, like, hey, he's a murderer, because at that point, then you can sue him for all kinds of things.
Of course.
Slander and libel and everything else, right? But he is going to infer that maybe there's something there that was missed, because how many times, ask retired police officers, retired detectives, how many times has a cold case been open and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we missed this, or I can't believe we didn't have the evidence for this, and then there's gentlemen and women that get convicted and serve 20 years in prison, and then finally some evidence shows up and says, oh wait, they didn't do it.
All right, well, fair enough, but I think
he's just inferring that there could be something there.
which there's no evidence to back that up.
Okay, so see, and I understand your concept, but at the same time, who holds the standard of how a president is or isn't supposed to act?
Well, I think us as Americans should be able to hold any politician to a higher standard, particularly if the leader of the free world. And
at the same time, everyone has a different opinion. So you and I, right, where we may agree on some things, we're not going to agree on everything, and our standard of etiquette is going to be different.
I suppose our standard of etiquette should be different. You're right. But if you have a daughter and your daughter is dating a man who says, I can grab them by the P word, they let me do it because I'm famous, I'm sure you probably wouldn't want your daughter dating somebody like that. Now, I vote differently than maybe others vote. The way I vote is not based on policy. The way I vote is based on starting with, if you are a decent human being.
But Brian, you're using this, the statement that Donald Trump made on a radio show as evidence, but you're dismissing the statement.
It was not a radio show.
Okay, well, you're dismissing the statement that Joe Scarborough made with Don Imus.
Joe Scarborough is not the president of the United States.
No, and neither was Donald Trump when he made that statement. Donald Trump was not an elected official when he made that statement.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Katie?
Yeah, he wasn't an elected official.
Mm-hmm.
I said the standard's not necessarily...
That is not... Okay, so I hold everybody accountable.
Let me finish, right? I hold people in the media at a high standard, and when I see false narratives and fake news spun, and it bothers me so badly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hardly ever speak out against media, because I know that they're going to say false things. They did a bunch of hit pieces on me, a while back, but they do it all the time, and they do it to spin a narrative. And it bugs the crap out of me. And, other than that, other than calling them directly out on it, there's not much you can do.
Okay.
So I hold them at a high standard, but I also hold my politicians at a high standard, because the problem with politicians, a lot of them forget who are they elected to serve. Right? They are elected to serve. It is the one time that taxpayers can say, hey, my taxes pay your salary, because at that point...
I agree. I agree with you. And all I'm simply saying is I think, and you can disagree, I think that we need to hold the president of the United States to a higher standard. Look, you're somebody who is running for the school board. I respect your opinion. You sound like a very smart lady. And by the way, I defended you on the air. I did. Even though I can't stand Trump and I think he's a scumbag, I defended you because I think you have the right to your opinions, political opinions. And listen, they should not have stripped you of Miss Nevada. I am on your side. But here's where I think, and we can disagree on politics, and that's fine. But here's where I completely disagree with you, and maybe we could talk about this, and maybe you could clear this up for me. I know you're not an Ocasio-Cortez fan. There's a lot of Republicans that are not, and that's fine. But Ocasio-Cortez, told her followers to stop crowding bars, restaurants, and public spaces a few months ago. I think that was a pretty accurate thing to say based on where we were a few months ago with social distancing and what have you. So you tweeted this out. You said, I just went to a crowded Red Robin and I'm 30. It was delicious, and I took my sweet time eating my meal because this is America, and I will do what I want. Do you regret tweeting that out? Do you think it was irresponsible, and would you like to apologize for that tweet?
First, I will now apologize. And here's why. Let me explain, okay? No, I'm not a fan of Ocasio-Cortez. I respect her right as a congresswoman to say whatever she wants, and I respect her right as an American citizen to say whatever she wants. what I was doing in that tweet, and most of my friends who knew me knew exactly what I was doing, because a few days prior she had said it was racist not to go to Chinese restaurants because they thought that they were going to they were going to catch the coronavirus, or back then the media was calling it the Wuhan flu or the Wuhan virus or whatever.
The Wuhan virus, yeah.
Right? They were calling it this. And so I tweeted that out because I was just trying to show the hypocriticism that she has. Right? Now, I didn't expect it to blow up, but when you're on Twitter, when you're in the internet, or when you're, I guess, in a public figure like, you never know really what's going to go viral. I've
Right.
probably said worse things than that.
Mhm.
But I've never said anything that's not true. Right? And so I'm not going to apologize for it, because I think within the first 4 hours, I got probably about 400 death threats.
Well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
But here's where I think you were wrong. And again, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. At the very at the very least, you could have worded this a lot better, Katie. Can we at least agree on that? When you say because this is America,
I think I could have worded it better, but I also think at the same time, why should I have to change my verbiage in order to make other people feel better?
well, because it can, listen, I'll tell you why. I'll answer your question. Because you have a lot of followers, and there are some ignorant people out there in the world, whether they're Donald Trump supporters or they listen to my show or you. I think you're a public person, right? And people are going to hang on to what you say. Now, if somebody read that and you said, because this is America, I'll do what I want. And they read what Katie Williams says, because I'm a Katie Williams fan, and they think, well, maybe I shouldn't have to practice social distancing. I'm going to do what I want. I'm not going to practice social distancing. Do you see how your words could harm people?
Well, here's the thing, too. So even after that tweet had gone viral, slightly before that and even after that, I kept saying, I said, we should always take precautions, and we should always understand that this virus is real. Right? I never said it wasn't a hoax. I never said it wasn't real. I never said it wasn't coming to America and infecting people. What I said is that we cannot live in fear. We have lived through worse, and we will get better. Like, we will come out of this on the other side, and we will come out stronger, and we will recover. Right? We've done this many, many times. When you look at, H1N1, I think back in 2000 and...
But this is more serious than H1N1. This is a pandemic.
No, I understand that. But same thing with Zika and Ebola and everything else. We have hit these viruses many times before, and we have taken precautions each time.
But
the only difference now is that it's never happened during the administration of Trump. And so how are we going to see how the media reacts unless we have a pandemic? Now, I'm not saying that it was made to test President Trump. I don't think that at all. I think that sometimes nature just has a way of kind of sticking it to us. But it's how we react to it is how we are going to come out of this. And I'll tell you, whoever reacted to this tweet that I had sent out, how you reacted to that tells me where you're at on a maturity level and where you're at on an emotional level and where you're at on a spiritual level. Because most people that supported me during that didn't get bothered by the way I said it, because they kind of understood what I was doing. And then if they continued to follow me, they would see that, hey, take this seriously, but do your due diligence, and you can still live your life.
Okay, I guess this is my question. How could you say that, you're talking about taking it seriously, but yet you're putting out a tweet that says you're bragging about being not just at a restaurant, but being at a crowded restaurant? You added that in there, and then you said...
Why am I the only one that's in trouble if it was crowded, right? Clearly I'm not the only one there.
I didn't say you were the only one that was not practicing social distancing, but you appear to be the only one that was bragging about it and then saying, this is America, I'll do what I want. I agree with you. If there were other people that were not practicing social distancing either, I would criticize them as well. But number one, you have a platform. You're a public celebrity. You're a public person. And even though I agree, I believe you that your friends might have understood what you were trying to say going after Cortez, there's a lot of people like myself that don't know that. So all I'm trying to get you to do, and I can't force you to say something. I should have chose my words
Brian
differently.
just expects perfection.
Well, no, listen, if you're not going to do it,
Which is completely reasonable.
No, this isn't about, that's a ridiculous statement.
No.
This has nothing to do with perfection.
He wants you to be Katie Poppins.
No, I don't. That's another ridiculous statement. All I'm trying, and I think, Katie, you're a smart woman. You understand what I'm saying here. You did not choose your words properly. That's all. And if you don't want to apologize for that, I can't make you. I just think you're smarter than this, and you shouldn't have put that tweet out. I thought it was a mistake.
I guess it's a level of perspective, right? I'll agree that I probably could have worded it a little bit differently. However, I don't think that the message was unclear. A lot of people you've scrolled Twitter for longer than 5 minutes. You know that everybody on there is pretty much hateful.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there's a lot of hate on there. There's no question.
They're just there to be hateful towards people under pseudonyms and everything else like that. That's why we go to Instagram for positivity. So,
Well, Katie, very soon Twitter is going to be held legally liable if this executive order that Trump signs comes through. I got a question about.
I think
it's
interesting.
It's a good thing, and we're going to see a lot less fake accounts. Everything will have to be vetted. But I have a question about just the whole situation with Miss Nevada. So Steve Sisolak becomes a Democratic governor in 2018. August 19th or August 18th, 2019. You are stripped of your crown because of your political beliefs. Do you believe that there was pressure from the state for that to take place?
I don't think at that time there was. I don't think Governor Sisolak even knows who I was back then, so which is fine. I think this was strictly just between myself and the pageant director themselves, and
I agree.
Felt was necessary. I don't think they wanted to, and I get it, right? It's their private business. And I said this on my video when I got stripped. I said it's their business; they can do what they want. But if you're going to hold me accountable, you have to hold everyone else accountable.
And
because I wasn't the only contestant that was posting things.
And to be fair, I'm sorry, Katie. To be fair, I want to say I defended you on that, and I will continue to defend you on that. But since we only have about a minute to go, and I appreciate you coming on our show, I want to give you time. We got about a minute left here. I'm sorry to rush you, but you're running for the school board, CCSD. Why should people vote for you? And just tell us a little bit about your platform.
Yeah, so again, my name's Katie Williams. I'm running for CCSD District B Board of Trustees. My biggest deal with the platform is that I just want parents to be able to choose their curriculum for their children and choose their schools for their children. I am a conservative. I've never hid that fact. I do support my elected officials. And the biggest thing here is that I just want people to understand that, if I'm fighting with pure strangers, I will fight for your children. Because I have a daughter, right? I want her to go to the best school possible and get the best mother or any parent would. So yeah, I'm a fighter, and I'm definitely not. I'm not paid by unions or anything like that. I'm actually donating my entire salary back to those teachers and the school programs and the actual school supplies that they're going to need for these programs. So if people want to join me, my website's katiewilliamsnv.com, and so it's got a link to all my websites and everything like that. They can go ahead and get on there.
Great.
And log on.
Well, Katie, we've had a lot of people on this show that I don't always agree with, some of whom I don't have respect for. I do have a tremendous amount of respect for you. You're a very smart lady, and I would absolutely support you on the school board because I think you'd be good for the city of Las Vegas, and we wish you the best of luck, and I appreciate you taking some time to join us, even though we do disagree on some things. I think you stated your case well, and love to have you on again sometime, so I appreciate your time, Katie, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Katie.
Appreciate it. All right, that's former Miss Nevada, Katie Williams. That is an interesting story. I kind of got her to admit that the tweet wasn't exactly appropriate, but didn't get an apology, but that's okay. That's all right. You can't have everything.
Was she apologizing to you?
That's okay.
Was she apologizing to you?
To everybody. To everybody.
To the world?
To anybody out there that saw her tweet and thought that it was okay to be in a crowded restaurant.
Would you want her to say the Red Robin food was not delicious?
Yeah.
No, I wanted her to say my tweet was probably
because it is delicious. Anyone who's been there knows.
I wanted her to say.
And do you know that she wasn't practicing social distancing there? Do you know that she wasn't 6 feet between the other tables?
Well, she said it was extremely crowded.
So it doesn't mean there wasn't 6 feet.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, the NHL is coming back in a big way. The NHL playoffs. Dan Duva, the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights, coming back. Coming up right next, right here on the Vegas Take.
Special report, coronavirus update. Well, the House has
Dan Duva doesn't need that much of a wind-up.
The
man, the myth, the legend, Dan Duva.
Hopefully Senate passage is likely, but talks on a much bigger measure to inject more than $3 trillion more into the economy are still stalled. Meantime, correspondent Steve Kastenbaum has new jobs numbers.
The Department of Labor said 2.1 million people across the country applied for unemployment benefits for the first time last week. That's a drop of around 300,000 from the previous week. While it's still an astronomical figure, it reflects a steady decrease in recent weeks. There was also a kernel of good news in this report. The number of continuing unemployment claims fell by 4 million to roughly 21 million. With some coronavirus restrictions being lifted across the country, it's evidence that businesses have been gradually bringing employees back.
I'm Evan Haining.
It's time to check the roads.
From the Lerner and Rowe Traffic Studio.
This report sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. An accident reported on 95 northbound at Horizon. Watch for slowing. Vehicles off to the left right now. There is a slowing pattern approaching and a crash on Durango at Flamingo. And police with the scene expect slowing at the intersection or take an alternate like Rainbow or Buffalo instead. Road work continues on the 95 southbound at the Spaghetti Bowl, at the I-15 southbound transition ramp until 4 this afternoon. Want the same internet but more privacy? DuckDuckGo's got you covered. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified. I'm John Michaels from the KDON Traffic Center.
Parents, you always say you want what's best for your children. If that's the case, then you should be bringing your kid to Infinity, the Math Institute, where every student earns an A or B in math. Our results are proven and they are amazing. The best tutoring service for the best price, whether online or in person, small group or one-on-one. You cannot get better results. Great grades will come when your child truly understands the math. From elementary math to calculus, we have the best tutors, the best materials, and the best results. Now offering free parent seminars on how to better help your child, what is Common Core, and more. Find out why parents are bragging and students are enjoying school again by calling 702-768-1777. That's 702-768-1777, or visit themathinstitute.com today. Tell them the Vegas Take sent you, because at Infinity, you don't get more math problems, you get solutions.
Right now, Home Sweet Home has never been sweeter. Our homes are more important than ever, and finding people we trust to take care of them is just as important. For over 20 years, Home Advisor has been connecting homeowners with trusted local plumbers, electricians, roofers, and more. And now we're making it easier than ever for great pros to join the Home Advisor network. For a limited time, home service businesses can get $200 in free advertising. Visit homeadvisor.com/offer200 for details. That's homeadvisor.com/offer200.
When I adopted her, she was a mess. Scabs, itching, licking, missing fur, hot spots. So I get the Dinovite.
DINOVITE.com.
And the Lico Chops. Within a 4-week total, Sheba is 105 lean pounds of shiny, smooth, happy dog, and she loves it.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
Dinovite for life.
DINOVITE.com.
Some boats can take you anywhere you want to go. Other boats help you get huge hang time. But only a Yamaha boat lets you do it all at once. From the entry-level 19-foot series to the power-packed Wake series to the luxurious 275 series. Yamaha makes boats that unlock all the possibilities on the water. Don't miss the May promo. Boating Lake Mead on Boulder Highway just south of Desert End Road. BoatingLakeMead.com.
Las Vegans are starting to leave their homes and get back to work. A sterilized business is more important than ever. Disinfecting Solution offers professional disinfecting and sterilization services for homes and establishments. For the next 30 days, they're offering Las Vegas businesses peace of mind for 10 cents a square foot. That is to ensure the health and safety of you, your staff, customers. Disinfecting Solution uses only hospital-grade products, killing 99.9% of all germs, including COVID-19. 866-800-7768 or disinfectingsolution.com.
This is Harry Jacobs from Credit Restoration of Nevada, inviting you to join me for the Credit Show, Saturday mornings between 9 and 10, here on the new 101.5 FM and 720 AM.
Hi, it's David Masters. Join me and my brother Alan for Advice Line, 10 to midnight, Monday through Friday, right here on 720 KDON and on 101.5 FM. That's Advice Line, America's live radio counseling program. If you've got problems, we've got your answers. Monday through Friday, 10 to midnight.
Looking for that perfect new piece of furniture for your home? A New Concept Furniture is the place to start and end your search. They'll beat any from the internet, and they're here locally, so you can feel what you're buying first. Go to A New Concept Furniture today at 4255 South Grand Canyon to see for yourself the slick, modern, shiny store that mirrors our shiny city. A New Concept. Check out their showroom or call them at 702-570-2240. That's 702-570-2240.
Mark Levin, weekdays 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM. KDON.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us live on a Thursday. Coming up here a little bit later in the show, planning to speak with Dan Duva, the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to see some NHL playoff hockey in Las Vegas, guaranteed. We just don't know exactly when that'll happen. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But I got to, we've talked a lot about systemic rape. We've talked a lot about the Ahmaud Arbery case last week, the horrible situation of an innocent 25-year-old African-American man being gunned down by 3 white guys. And now we're talking about the George Floyd situation. We've talked about that. Systemic racism exists, and now we see these, social media videos of these different people across the street that are idiot racists, and they give them all these nicknames. Well, now we have a new one for you, folks. Have you heard of Hill Park Karen? It's the story of a white woman. It's funny how I start this like it's a novel. The story of a white woman that is walking her dog. An African-American man is bird watching, which is a little strange, but some people do bird watch. That's fine. It's not against the law. He's gotching in Central Park. It's just weird, that's all. But anyway, the guy's bird watching, and then he tells this woman, hey, your dog needs to be on a leash. I get those are the rules. If somebody told me that, I'd tell him to F off because I'm a horrible human being, but that's fine. But he's a little nosy, but he's not doing anything wrong. He seems like a very calm, nice guy. He says, ma'am, can you please put a leash on your dog? This white woman goes nuts because she's a racist, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to play you a little bit of this audio. This is Section with Central Park Karen and this African-American man. Have a listen to this.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
Then
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me?
Wait for it.
I'm sorry, I'm in a ramble, and there is a man, African-American, who has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
Thank you.
All right, first of all, I'm laughing at this because this woman is such a dope. She's such a racist dope. She's so ridiculous. What's going on? She's pretty much has a noose around her dog, strangling her dog, by the way. All right, here's the good news, folks. For dopes like Central Park Karen. And by the way, I'm so happy that her life is ruined because we don't want idiots like this in society. Since this video surfaced, she has lost her job, and she's also lost her dog. And now people in New York are calling for her to be banned from Central Park for life. That might be a little harsh. But here's what she did that is so damning. And if you're one of those people that's thinking, oh, what's the big deal? What did she do? Well, here's what she did. She made up a lie that an African-American male was threatening her life. Obviously, that wasn't happening. So what happens there? She knows that if the police arrive, they're most likely going to take her side of the story over his. She's using the fact that she is a white woman and engaging with an African-American man who, by the way, did nothing wrong and maybe being a little bit nosy. That's about it. He didn't do anything wrong. He was very calm. He didn't call her any names. This is clearly a woman who is a racist that is using her white privilege because she doesn't like the fact that somebody called her out for not abiding by the rules. She is a disgusting human being, and she even put together a half-hearted apology. She said, well, I'm sorry if I offended him. And then she tried to make everybody feel sorry for her. I don't think anybody should feel sorry for her because people that are racist, that use the color of their skin for, to put a narrative forward and lie, are horrible human beings. I'm glad she was fired from her job. I'm glad she lost her dog because, quite frankly, when you look at how does this woman even get through like daily life? Did you hear her voice? Oh, there's an African-American man. He's threatening my life. Please come quickly. She looked like she was being raped. But her voice, And I say to myself, how do people like this get by in society? How do they get through daily life when they're mental midgets like this guy or like this woman? It makes zero sense to me.
Can you picture the picture him? He went on CNN and said,
right,
yeah, even I think that taking away her dog is a little much. But can you picture, she's saying this man, this big African-American man is scaring me, and the guy's got like reading glasses and binoculars around his neck because he's watching, he's bird watching in the park, and the cops are going to show up and go, what, you're scared of that guy?
Ladies and gentlemen, Urkel is following me in the park.
So he was bird watching in the park. She ran by and happened to see him with a camera.
No, here's what happened. No,
her dog was off leash.
Okay.
Dog was off the leash. He asked her to please put the leash on the dog because he didn't want the birds to fly away. He was well in the right to do that because he was right. The rules are that when you're walking your dog, you have. Now, listen, I will say this.
I did not know you were a bird watching purist, Brad.
Listen, I will say this. I dated a girl at the time, a girlfriend at the time. It was like 6 or 7 years ago. She had a cute little dog. She was walking her dog, and a bulldog killed him. And the bulldog killed him because the bulldog was not on a leash. Only bad things can happen if your dog is not on a leash in a public park. Okay? There are reasons why they put those rules in place. Now, with that being said, this guy was being a little bit nosy. But what this woman did was 100 times worse. I think we all could agree on that. And these people, I'm so glad of this day and age of social media where this helps people because you can call out these racist pigs that are out there in society. If you go on YouTube, you just type in these, racist in public, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of videos just like this woman. They're called out. Many of them lose their job, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good when one racist pig is inconvenienced or loses their job. Now, this woman wants people to feel sorry for her. I am glad that dog, I don't want a dog's owner to be a racist. I don't think any racist should be able to own a dog. That's number one. Number two, we need to call these people out, and this woman, mark my words, will think twice before she decides to call the police on an African American again. She will not do it again.
And Central Park Karen basically has got some mental issues, as you heard in that call, and she probably deserves to be in an insane asylum.
Yeah, she sounds very, very paranoid.
In fact, she's actually, a new story came out this morning that she sued her ex-lover, some married man. So this woman's got a ton of baggage.
She's very, very sensitive.
Yes. So here's what we're going to do.
Kind of reminds me of Nancy Goodman.
Anxiety.
Very similar.
So here's what we're going to do.
With racial undertones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to switch topics a little quickly here because last I heard, the NHL is going to be back. Not the regular season. It is the NHL playoffs. And it's time for one of my favorite hockey songs.
Someone roars, Bobby scores at the good old hockey game.
Oh!
The good old hockey game is the best game you can name.
That's right. It is. Thank you, Sean. It's a good old hockey game.
I've never heard that song once in my life.
That's ridiculous. You're sheltered.
Well, I did not grow up a Oilers fan.
I know this guy has because he's one of the best in the business, and I think hockey is one of the most difficult sports to do play-by-play. And Dan Duva is one of the best. He happens to be the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. Dan, I know you've heard that song before, have you not?
Oh my gosh, hasn't every single person who's ever been to a hockey game at any level heard that song?
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We're East Coast guys, man, okay? I grew up a Hartford Whalers fan, so JD doesn't know what he's talking about.
Dan, I've probably been to 20 Golden Knights home games, and I've never heard that song.
Well, they don't play it really at Knights games very often. Once in a while. But it's an East. Me and Dan are.
At Golden Knights games is, they play so much they might not play songs in their entirety. They might play it for a few seconds here or there, I guess. No, it's a staple, but I guess it doesn't quite fit with the atmosphere that we normally feel at T-Mobile.
I think it sounds like something you might hear at a Klan rally.
No, that's not true. That's inappropriate. Dan, do not listen to our producer.
I'm sorry, a hoedown. A cross-burning?
A hoedown?
Dan, you're no part of this. Do not listen to our producer. He's trying to cause trouble. But anyway.
Me and JD never heard of it. Sean has never heard. Okay,
well, you guys are idiots.
Hey, I don't have a problem with it. I just haven't heard it. Well, I actually kind of enjoyed it.
We didn't have Dan to come on the show for 15 minutes to talk about the good old hockey game song. But Dan, what I did want to talk to you about is the good news that we've heard from Gary Bettman in the NHL, that even though the regular season has been canceled, we have learned that the NHL playoffs are going to happen this year. And for Vegas Golden Knights fans, guess what? They're in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and it's something that we talked about even at the outset of the NHL pause. It didn't make too much sense to resume the regular season. The Knights had played 71 out of 82 games, and plenty of clubs had been long since eliminated or were so far out, very unlikely they would have made it in. So it never really made sense to resume the regular season. The problem was, what about the teams on the bubble? Would you go by points or points percentage? The Knights would have had different first-round matchups. So this 24-team scenario makes up for the teams on the bubble who might have gotten in but didn't have the chance to overtake a deficit. But it also excludes the remaining 7 teams that weren't going to make it. And so the Golden Knights are Pacific Division champions. The regular season having been ended at that point in mid-March. Golden Knights have now won 2 Pacific Division championships in 3 years. Not bad. And when things ultimately resume, we're thinking maybe sometime in July. They haven't set dates for this. The Golden Knights will be in the top 4 teams in the Western Conference. And those top 4 teams will play sort of a mini round robin for seeding, while the bottom 8 teams in the Western Conference will be seeded, and they'll play best of 5 qualifying series. So just to be clear, this is not the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. All of this with these 12 teams in each conference gets you into the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs as we have known them historically. This sort of gimmicky way to solve that problem, and I don't have a problem with it. It is a little bit gimmicky, but they needed to find a way to get the teams to play games, to get up to game speed. And in fact, some of the opposition, 2 of the 31 teams, meaning the players' representatives, not the league or the owners, but the player reps, 2 of the teams in the league said, no, we don't like this format because those really good teams that are in this round robin, those games aren't particularly meaningful. You already know you're in and you're playing for seeding. So, that's fine. Whatever. They've got a plan. That's good. They haven't settled on dates. They haven't settled on venues. And part of that is they just don't know what things are going to look like in a month or 2.
Sure.
So it's now a matter of getting the guys ready to get back on the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just joining us again, the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights, Dan Duva. Okay, so 2-part question here, and I'm not sure we have the answers or you'll have the answer to this, but do you have any sense if this does happen in July, late July, will the fans be allowed to be in the arenas, number 1, and number 2? I've heard rumblings that we may have a lot of games in Las Vegas and there may be other teams playing in T-Mobile Arena. Any information on that?
At this point in time, there would not be fans in the arenas. They're expecting ultimately to settle on 2 hub cities, one for the Western Conference. And yes, Las Vegas is in the running to be one of those cities. And the reason why they haven't just chosen a city in each conference yet is related to how things evolve between now and then. So they're moving forward with all of these cities, and based on the circumstances in a month, then they can make the choice. They don't feel like they need to make that choice right now. They're kind of going forward with plans in all of these cities, including Las Vegas. So we'll see. Maybe Vegas is one of them. Then that raises the question, would the Golden Knights be allowed to have that home ice advantage, quote unquote, which is why I kind of wonder if they would choose Vegas. Why not go with a place like, say, Los Angeles? Because things are not involved.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. It's possible that, again, if things tend in a positive way, that once you get into the regular Stanley Cup playoffs, Gary Bettman has acknowledged that it's possible that playoff series could return to the home team city. So they haven't ruled anything out with regard to, it's still possible that the Golden Knights could get to the Stanley Cup final and they could play as the home team in T-Mobile Arena. That's still a possibility.
Wow.
They just aren't going to go so far as to make that even a realistic promise at this point. They're just leaving the door open for that.
Yeah.
And it's very much one step at a time here. And that's what this agreement was between the league and the Players Association.
So it is not out of the realm of possibility, Dan, that we could see several different playoff series against 2 different teams in T-Mobile Arena. Not as fans wouldn't be able to watch that, but as members of the media, you and I, we would actually get a treat and be able to watch several different playoff series in the Western Conference in T-Mobile. Not a definite, but that certainly is a possibility, right?
It is a possibility. Yeah, I would hesitate to put a percentage chance on it, but yeah, I mean, I could see a scenario in which that they do choose Vegas as a hub city, that the Knights would be there, and that media would be allowed in the building. I'm not saying that is the likely scenario, but that is at least a possibility.
If that were to take place, when would we know about that?
I don't think it would be for at least another 3 or 4 weeks. Again,
Yeah.
just based on what the the folks from both the league and the Players Association have said, they don't need to choose a location. They are intentionally putting it off. So, I mean, God forbid there's another wave or an outbreak that's in the Las Vegas area. Meanwhile, Edmonton, Alberta has been virtually unaffected by all of this. They've got a very new arena. It's only a year older than T-Mobile. They just opened up a new hotel. You don't even have to go outside to get from the hotel to the arena.
Wow.
And there are plenty of practice venues in Edmonton, Alberta. But the problem with that is crossing the border into Canada is something that you can't do right now. So
Right.
there are pros and cons to all of these different cities that are on the table, and
Right.
who knows what it's going to look like a month from now. And that's why they're going to wait probably 3 or 4 more weeks before they narrow it down.
And by the way, what Dan is talking about, Las Vegas is on a list of at least 10 cities that are being considered. So we're one of 10. So like we said, there's a possibility.
That's an interesting structure because it's just kind of like March Madness with the regionals.
No question.
And I think it could be very effective.
So, Dan, let's move on now to the actual quality of the hockey in the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I've talked to some people surrounded with NHL teams and NBA franchises, and they've said, well, the quality of play, it's just not going to be what it was before we went to this corona pandemic. And the reason why they say that is even though these hockey players are going to have 6, 7, maybe even 8 weeks to prepare for this, still, it's not the same, and I'm sure you would agree, practices as an actual game scenario, especially playoff hockey, which you know is probably just as much, if not more physical than any other sport. So with that being said, when we do get this thing going, and when it does happen, hopefully in July, do you suspect that the quality of play will probably not be at as high a level, say, as it was last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, it would be hard to imagine that it would be on par, especially at the outset. And I can put it in the context of, say, an injured player. Let's say, as happened with the Golden Knights, Alex Tuck is injured late in the preseason, and he misses the first month of the regular season. Well, when he comes back, he's not only trying to get healthy, he's trying to play catch-up because the rest of the league and his teammates and opponents have been playing for a month. So he's got to try to get back not only healthy, but also into that point of the NHL season. It's harder to come back a month after that and a month after that. So there is that progress throughout an entire NHL regular season, which is partly why the playoffs are at an increasingly higher level the further you go. The intensity of what's on the line.
Right.
So that's all true. I would think that what you're looking for now, and I think to the average consumer, it would be hard to tell a discernible difference. I mean, coaches, scouts, players might be able to really sense it, but the average fan is not going to tell too much difference.
Yep.
But I would say that it's more in terms of fairness. Which teams, get more time on the ice? We know we talked about this last time. I believe we chatted that there's, to prepare as a hockey player, you got to be on the ice. And most of these guys, and I couldn't put a number on it, but the huge majority of players have not set foot on the ice since mid-March. A couple of guys who went back home to Canada, who live far away from everything, who have access to their own ice, okay, they've been on the ice. But that's a handful. Most have not. Riley Smith said a couple weeks ago that this is the longest he's gone without being on the ice since he was 8 years old. So they're going to start getting on the ice in the near future in small groups only. And then at some point after July 1st, they're going to go into this training camp mode, and that'll last probably a couple of weeks. Then each team is expected to have 2 exhibition games with like a huge roster, so you can try to get as many people in as you can. And then you would go into this qualifying round. So, yeah, I think that in terms of the fairness, that was, again, as I mentioned before, these teams that are higher seeds, they can't just be sitting around to get the perceived benefit of a bye. There's no benefit in a bye.
Right.
Get the rust off. So the bad teams are going to get more experience. You're playing a best-of-5 series you're playing for your lives for those qualifying teams. Then you're going to run up against a better team, let's say the Golden Knights, and they played a few games, but there was nothing really on the line. Like, okay, you're the number 1 seed or you're number 4 seed. That's the best and worst scenario. You're not going to get knocked out. So there could be a little bit of an advantage for those lower teams rather than the top 4 teams.
Have you had any conversations with current players as far as what they've done to stay in shape, like a Marc-Andre Fleury, for example, in unbelievable shape, during the season, but he's approaching, he's mid-30s, he's getting older. Have you talked to anybody like that as far as what they've done outside of the ice and kind of keeping themselves athletically ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're all accustomed to working out, and the strength and conditioning staff with the Golden Knights has been working with the players remotely so that they are in some kind of a routine. They've not just been left to their own devices. It's not like, high school or college where the players are not allowed to communicate with the team. That's not the case here. So, I'm not sure that I could get into the nitty-gritty of any particular player's routine here, but as far as I know, nobody from the Golden Knights has had any meaningful on-ice anything.
Yeah.
And that's what they all keep coming back to, is they're itching to get back on the ice because there's nothing that can replicate
Right.
the action, the training that comes along with being on the
Yep.
ice. So they're simply eager to strap on the skates and get out there. I think one of the players I did talk to asking about this was Will Carrier. I asked, is it going to be harder to get back to form for someone like you, a guy who runs around and hits a lot of guys? Is it going to be harder for defensemen, for goalies, for older guys, for younger guys? He said it's going to be hardest for the skill players to get their timing back.
That makes sense. Yep.
Ryan Reeves and his line would be able to
Sure.
pick up right where they left off because they're 2 of the top hitters in the NHL. But the skill guys, maybe like a Will Carlson or a Max Pacioretty, that might take a little bit more for them to get their timing back.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Well, Dan, we're also itching to hear you back on the radio, not just with us, but certainly with the play-by-play skills that you have. You're one of the best in the business. Dan, I hope we can have you on again sooner than later, right before maybe we get these games going. But always appreciate it when you take some time to join us, my man. Thank you so much, and look forward to talking to you again soon, okay?
My pleasure, guys. And don't forget, tonight at 7 o'clock is the big unveiling for the new AHL team in Henderson.
Oh, that's right.
Logo and everything. Live broadcast is tonight at 7 o'clock.
Oh, cool.
He's going to be interviewed. So pretty big news, coming there that they've been waiting to announce. They wanted to have an in-person event, but obviously time has taken its toll on the plans. So it's going to be an online event. You can watch it. I think they're planning like an hour-and-a-half program.
Oh,
tonight at
sweet.
7 o'clock.
Well,
it'll be broadcast live on all the. It's going to be on TV, on NBC locally. It'll be
Cool.
on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. It's everywhere.
Perfect. Well, thank you for reminding us about that, Dan. We appreciate that. Talk to you again soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
All the best, guys. Yep, thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Up against a hard break for 21 hours. Folks, Sean Hannity's next.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes.